right, you're good.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm State Senator Marilyn Moore. We're going to convene the meeting for the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Subcommittee. I'd like to welcome you all. This is our first meeting with the agencies to go over their requests. My co-chair is Rep. Dorinda Orr. Would you like to say something?
Sure. So thank you, Senator Moore, for kicking us off, and hello to all of the committee members and those who may be joining us in a wider audience by live streaming. We're looking forward to a very productive and busy day. Thank you.
Yeah. Senator Martin is the ranking member. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, everybody. Looking forward to listening to what the agency's requests are, and hopefully we can accommodate as best as we can. Their needs may not be always the case, but we'll do our best to see how we can help them take care of their, I guess, their buildings and whatever, I guess, maintenance and requests that they may have for their particular, I guess, needs that they may have. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Martin. Representative Piscopo is the ranking from the House.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this, and looking forward to trying to put the best document we can out this year, and we'll do what we can to accommodate. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have all the agencies set up, half an hour each. The first agency is Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And Commissioner Duffin-Rittman, are you going to be up for your agency?
Yes, that's correct. And I
Okay.
have members with my team here as well. So good afternoon, Senator Moore and Representative Orr, and distinguished members of the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee's Subcommittee on Bonding. I'm Miriam Duffin-Rittman, Commissioner of the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. I'm also joined by Stephen DiPietro, who is the department's Chief Fiscal Officer, and also Stephen Hekamovich, who is the department's Director of Engineering Services, in order to provide testimony today. Yes, so we'll be providing testimony on prior bond authorizations set to become effective in fiscal year 2021. And also the governor's proposed budget for fiscal years 2022 and 23. The governor's budget recommends new authorizations in the amount of $13.5 million in fiscal year 22 and also $8.7 million in fiscal year 23. I did provide a summary. We provided a several page summary, and it goes through each of the specific areas where we plan to use those potential investments. DMIS is a large healthcare agency, as you all know. Our goal is to deliver cost-effective, quality mental health and addiction services, recovery services as well. The bonding resources are used to upgrade and maintain many of our buildings, which actually are older. I'll just go through a few of the buildings that we have that are quite old. So for example, Connecticut Mental Health Center was built in 1966. Capital Region Mental Health Center, built in 1954. Bridgeport, built in 1972. Whiting Forensic Hospital, built in 1970. And Connecticut Valley Hospital has buildings that we use that were built anywhere from 1940 to 1959. The department's unallocated fire and safety and environmental improvement funds in the amount of $12.4 million will be utilized for the replacement of a parking garage at Bridgeport Community Mental Health Center. This project we plan to have go out to bid in May of this year, with construction beginning in summer or early fall. Additionally, the department's prior authorization of $11.9 million in sprinkler funds will be used at the Connecticut Mental Health Center in New Haven, and that will go out to bid in April, and we anticipate that the work will start in early summer. The balance of our unallocated sprinkler funds will be used in the design and construction of Greater Bridgeport Mental Health Center sprinkler system. Additionally, the department has remaining $3.2 million of prior bond authorization that will be used in grants for our private nonprofit providers. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today and are happy to answer any questions that you might have about our bond planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Commissioner, I heard you say that 11950, how are you using that?
Yes, so the 11.9 million,
Mhm.
that will be used for the sprinkler system in New Haven, Connecticut Mental Health Center, as well as for a system that will be part of the Bridgeport Mental Health Center. The New Haven work at CMHC, we plan to have that go out to bid in April, and that work will actually start in the summer. And then for the Bridgeport sprinkler system, the resources for that will be used for both the design and the work itself on the sprinkler system for Bridgeport Mental Health Center.
So, Commissioner, I remember in the last meeting we had, the Bridgeport garage was deplorable. Has anything been done on that?
Yeah, so that work also we're anticipating will begin going out to bid mid-May. So we've done a good bit of planning on that process and the work that needs to happen with the garage. And so we plan to have that go out to bid in May. So that's $12.1 million project.
Okay, can I ask why that takes so long to get that done?
Yeah, I'll ask Stephen DePietro, my fiscal director, to talk about that a little bit. We've had extensive conversations about this. It is a process. And so, Stephen, can you just go through that process a little bit? We did receive the resources recently. So, Stephen, can you go through that?
Yeah.
The timeline?
I agree with you. It takes longer than I think any project should take. But we work with the Department of Construction Services when we have big projects like this. So first you have to get the engineer on board, and then you got to do the site planning and all those pieces, and then you got to do the code reviews, and then get it ready for the bidding process. So, and plus we also didn't have enough dollars. If you remember, we needed to get the $3 million that you guys gave us last year to give us to the 12 million so we could go out to bid. So we believe we have the resources now in place. We're in the final stages of the bid package. So we're probably ready to go once we get the bids in, and then we have to go to the bond commission again to get the authorizations to move forward with the project. So we're hopeful that everything's in line now for that project. It's taken at least 3 or 4 years, but we're ready to move on it. So we're confident that one's going to move forward.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to open this up to questions from my other members. Are there any questions? Hold on just a second. Representative Barr, your
Thank
hand's
you.
up.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and thank you for all the work that you do. Just a couple of quick questions. For the funding that was authorized but not allocated, did that create did that increase the cost for the projects that you were looking to build because of the delay?
I would say not. As Stephen outlined, the different steps, we've been moving through the various steps all along. I don't know that it necessarily changed the costs per se of the project overall. Stephen, can you respond to that piece? I think it has remained fairly steady in terms of the amount of dollars that we knew that we wanted and needed for the project.
Yeah, the garage project, it did increase because as we started looking at the site, we had to do additional drainage problems that we weren't aware of initially. So that bumped up the cost, and the authorizations we had were not enough. And that's why we got the extra 3 million last year. So we should be in good position now with the bids. We're going to go out to bid. Hopefully, we've done our analysis good enough to know that we're close, because otherwise, when the bids come in, if it's over the 12 million, we might have a problem, but I don't think we're going to have that problem this time.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you,
Great, thank
Stephen.
you. So were there any addiction programs that you had identified, and it might have been through your operating budget, but just, making sure we cross our T's and dot our I's? Was there anything through bonding that we could assist through? Any of the addiction programs that you're working on, anything new that's on the horizon, or is there any, I think of Narcan, I don't know, if we bond for that, but is there anything with respect to bonding that we could do to support our addressing addiction services?
We didn't propose anything there in terms of, bonding dollars for the addiction services per se. Many of the projects that we proposed are because, many of our buildings, as I mentioned, are quite old. And so we have a number of needs there in terms of our sprinkler systems, or in terms of the, renovations, for example, of the Connecticut Valley Hospital, Battelle dorms, to increase the, in many ways, to bring the building up to code. Even our power plant, there's a project related to our power plant that we proposed. So we did not request any services or any dollars per se for things like Narcan. Thankfully, we've gotten a number of federal grants that we often charge and sort of use to purchase our Narcan for our statewide distribution. And we anticipate we'll be getting additional dollars through the recovery bill that was passed, or law that was passed last year, that will help to address addiction services and supports.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator Moore.
Thank you. Senator Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming and providing this information for us. So, Commissioner, how many buildings do you currently take care of or maintain?
Oh boy. So, across the whole state, because again, we have buildings.
Representative Meskers votes yes.
Okay. Yeah, we do have buildings across the whole state. Stephen, what would that number be, or about? I mean, the CVH campus alone.
About 70 buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
And currently, on average, I just want to sort of get an understanding. What's your typical bonding request for capital improvement money on an annual basis? It looks like right now you're looking for 13 or 20 million. What is on the average? What do you ask for?
I mean, I think it varies based on, the big projects that we have or that we need, but I would say that's right around what we've requested. Is that correct, Stephen? That
Yeah.
This is right in there in terms of what we typically request?
So on an average, we can expect this is sort of give us an idea that, $20 million a year is your typical ask. Do you help out? I'm sure you have other agencies or nonprofits that help you. Do you help them in any way regarding taking care of their facilities? And if so, how much is that of the bonding that you asked? How much which can we expect to see that be identified within your request?
Yeah. So, our private nonprofit providers they'll sometimes submit requests to us. Those are sometimes for the smaller things. So we'll often receive upwards of about $1 million or so, or a little bit less than $1 million in requests from our private nonprofit providers. That often will cover things like their furnace or roofing repairs. They also, though, can request bond funds through other agencies as well. They'll sometimes submit requests to OPM. And so that's something that they sometimes do as well. The requests we get for some of those smaller things are typically around $1 million in total, or even a little bit less than that.
In your cover letter, I see that the department's unallocated fire and safety funds 12.5 is being utilized for the upgrading of the garage. I guess I'm having I want to try to connect the two, the funds that are identified as fire and safety funds to a parking garage. How's that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had asked that question. I had asked that question as well early on. The full title of that account is Fire, Safety, and Environmental Improvements. And so there's a component of that account that has a separate line for sprinklers, like sprinkler system, for example. And so, or actually, in that the sprinklers technically is its own account as well, but for the fire, safety, and environmental improvements, the garage counts as the environmental component of that account.
Garage and environmental.
Yeah, yep. So that's an environmental, counts as an environmental improvement. Technically the garage right now has drainage issues. It has, pieces of the ceiling that are coming down and without a separate drainage system that can create environmental,
Got it.
issues. So
Sure.
for us, the garage fits within that sort of environmental improvement. Stephen, I don't know if you want to address that a little bit more. I know we've had conversations about this as well.
Yeah, I think it's sort of an old term. It's a category where most of the state operated building maintenance and repairs stuff falls under that category in our bonding language. It's fire safety, environmental, and building repairs and maintenance. So
Sure.
it's a large category. That's why the garage fell into that category.
Yeah, you clarified it. I think the moment that you started tying it into the environmental with the, when you got a building that's starting to deteriorate and it can impact, different aspects of the environment. One last question regarding your capital improvements going forward. Do you have an ongoing, I guess, list of capital improvements that you have planned for the future?
We do. We're often planning out different projects, moving forward, and we will phase projects based on our allocations. So we do have additional projects that we're sort of thinking of as part of our, ultimately we have a 5-year plan. And so the 5-year plan will outline different areas that we want to address over time. To be able to keep our buildings up to code and keep them safe and efficient.
Is there anything coming forward that we should be aware of that we should be placing on our radar? The tendency, excuse me, but the tendency is in a lot of municipalities and a lot of businesses as well. It shouldn't just say municipalities, but there's always, you defer. When money's and the resources for funding is low, then you start to defer. And so that's sort of what I'm trying to get a handle on is, all right, there's something lurking in the back here that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the projects, long range, and Stephen, can you speak to that in terms of some of the long range pieces that we're looking at down the line? I know you've worked closely with our engineer team around looking at this.
Yeah, I think sort of the major one that we are thinking about, and it's commissioners in the for the new authorizations, the Whiting Forensic Hospital. I mean, I think that is sort of the big major project that at some point we're going to have to make some decisions about which direction we're going to go. In the governor's budget for new authorizations, there's a $3 million item there to look at the Whiting Forensic facility to come up with a design and new construction plan for that facility. That is probably the largest new project that's in the pipeline.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's right. Because what's in the bonding right now is resources to do a study. And so ultimately, or to work with the design team rather. And once we have the plan from the design team, that's exactly right down the line. We'll need resources for the hospital itself.
Good. All right. Thank you so much for answering my questions to both of you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Representative Piscopo?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here and for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
My question goes to, I know you're busy, so my question goes to the nonprofit line item that Senator Martin touched on. What's our unallocated fund? What's our unallocated amount in that?
So
Yeah, we have about $3.2 million of unallocated dollars on that line. And again, why we didn't request new dollars going out for 22 and 23, like the commissioner told you, we're spending less than $1 million for PMPs each year. And mainly because they have available funds at OPM, which is a larger part of money, and they're going more towards that direction to get bonding projects. We are sort of picking up the pieces where there's emergencies, a furnace breaks down, a roof is in trouble, or they have some code violations, and we're able to move out smaller amounts of money. So we felt that the 3.2 that we currently have should get us through the next biennium.
Thank you. And your facility in Bridgeport, is that on Bond Street? That your facility is that Bond Street mental health facility in Bridgeport?
Central Ave.
Central. Do you have a facility on Bond Street?
Steve, I'm not sure. I am not aware of anything on.
There was a nursing home. This is Senator Moore. There was a nursing home there that was forced to close. It wasn't owned by the state. It was privately owned.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. You know, we hear from our constituents and that are absorbing some of those patients. And so I was wondering if you were affiliated with that. And thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. And my other question, I think that pretty much covers it. You're unallocated in nonprofits is 3. As we're downsizing the prison population, are you still in charge of trying community-based facilities for those in corrections or that are phasing out?
Yeah, so individuals who are part of corrections that have mental health or addiction challenges, we often will work with them. They can receive services or any one of our local mental health authorities and are eligible to receive those wraparound services and supports that are provided through our local mental health authorities. We don't work with all individuals, though. Of course, just the individuals that may have mental health or addiction challenges that are referred to us. We'll also do in-reach and sometimes work with people before they come to the end of their sentence to make sure that there's a seamless transfer once their sentence is completed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We've got another 5 minutes. Representative Dave Yaccarino.
I'll be really quick, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving me a minute. Thank you, Commissioner, for your work. It's not related to bonding, but I just want to say thank you and all the men and women that work at DEMIS. This was a difficult year for everybody, but especially people, I think, that have addiction issues or mental health issues. And I wish we always had enough resources for intervention early on. And that's why I just want to say thank you so much for what you do. And I think it's something we need to focus on as a state. I've always say this because it touches everybody, unfortunately, but thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for that.
Representative Terry Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I concur with Representative Yaccarino's comments. Commissioner, thank you for all you're doing for this population of people. It does touch every one of us, and we certainly feel it here, and we appreciate what you're doing. A quick question. I hope it's a quick question. I'm just curious why sprinkler systems cost so much.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've sort of learned about this over the years because, and it often requires taking down the ceiling, opening up the walls, putting in the water system to be able to, activate it and to, so that the sprinklers actually work. It's quite a process. Stephen, do you want to talk more about that? It's really like a whole engineering thing that's more nuanced than I even realized. But Stephen, quickly, if you can talk about that, that would be really helpful.
I could defer to my engineer because I'm always amazed how much these things cost. And it's like, really, it costs that much? So
Well,
Steve,
it's,
Yes, yes.
right, it's plumbing.
Well, it disrupts the whole building. We do have to tear all the ceilings down. If it's a grid ceiling, we can't reuse the grid. They can't work within the grid. Everything has to come down. So all the ceilings have to be replaced. And in most of our buildings, the lighting is, old lighting, and we want to upgrade that with LEDs. We have to get into walls. Sometimes we have to add an additional pump to power the water through the building because there isn't one there, or the one there is not efficient. We have to move. So we're concentrating on our patient population buildings, and we have to move patients around the building as we're doing this. So it's a huge undertaking, and it disrupts the whole facility completely.
Thank you. Boy, for that money, you could almost build an entire building new.
Even that, if I can just take an opening to like,
Yeah.
Even to do a new building, like Whiting Forensic Hospital, an estimate for a new building could be around 125 million.
Right. Well, that's a fair point. I mean, I didn't want to open up to that discussion, but if it's a fair point, and thank you. I appreciate that. So the bottom line is it has been looked at, and there's a very specific reason why this cost is so high for the sprinkler systems. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Commissioner.
Thank you for the question.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Meskers, I saw your hand up and it went down. Did you want to ask something?
Yes, indeed. Sorry about that. I wanted to thank you for your testimony. I think it would be very helpful. We often talk about a fiscal cliff or a benefit cliff. I think going forward on testimony, when we talk about the wraparound services to people, particularly with addictions, it's important for us to realize what we spend on incarceration. The human cost, there's a whole social cost, and I won't go through that because I think we're all united in the horrible cost, social cost to people. So I think what's important is to understand as people are released that we have a decent and adequate level of wraparound services. So the transition back into the community continues to be successful. And as particularly when we're dealing with addictions and all of the issues for which many people are incarcerated, releasing them into the community without providing that network just becomes that cycle that is so unproductive. So I think it's helpful in our bonding meetings that, you remind us all of what we're spending per capita on incarceration, what social services we provide when the person is incarcerated, and what social services we provide as they're released. Because if we take all those services down, we have to worry whether we're accomplishing much or spurring a cycle of recidivism. So I appreciate that from you going forward.
Okay, can certainly include that information whenever possible.
Great, thanks.
Well, Commissioner, thank you so much, and thank your team. And you know how much we appreciate the work you do. I try to tell you every time we meet, we appreciate the work that you're doing in all of our communities. So thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, Commissioner, have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the time. Take care,
You're welcome.
everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the Department of Developmental Services.
Good afternoon. This is Jordan Sheff from DDS. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues, Scott McWilliams, and our CFO, and our Chief Engineer, Facilities Engineer, Warren Schilling, as well as my legislative staff. So thank you for the opportunity today to testify on behalf of Senate Bill number 887, an act authorizing and adjusting bonds of the state for capital improvements, transportation, and other purposes. I want to express our support for this bill and the governor's recommended bond authorization of $2 million in FY 2022 and $2 million in FY 2023 for the department, and presents DDS's plan for utilizing unallocated bond fund balances. The department is prepared to prioritize the current bond fund balances to address necessary repairs to maintain the safe operation of residences for the individuals we serve and the workplaces of DDS employees. Anticipated in projects include health, safety, fire, ADA, environmental and code compliance, major underground utility system repair, critical paving and sidewalk repairs, repair and replacement of failed and leaking roofs, repair and replacement of failed heating and AC systems, and the renovation of deteriorated buildings and living spaces, including kitchens and bathrooms. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify. This is an abbreviated version of my full written testimony that has been submitted to you, and we are happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for your staff who are here with you. Today we'll take questions. I'll save mine to the end. Let me see. Are there any questions? Okay, then Commissioner, I do want to ask you about Southbury. Can you tell me what's the status of Southbury?
Currently, we have approximately 145 individuals still living on the grounds at Southbury. Annually, just about annually, we have been able to reduce the footprint on the campus that we use, and that includes mothballing old construction that's no longer in use so that it doesn't deteriorate. And we do use funds for that, but the footprint continues to shrink and we grow smaller and smaller in terms of utilization of the campus.
And how is that campus used as you close those buildings down?
It continues to be used for the 150 or so individuals who live there in the cottages that remain. And they utilize the campus as they have since its opening many, many years ago.
So are the buildings vacant? Is that as you condense?
There are some. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yes, Senator. We can. When we vacate buildings, they get closed and shuttered properly. And I'm not sure if Warren, if you know how many buildings we still actively use on campus or not, and if he does not, we can get back.
Warren, you're
I think
muted.
you're muted,
still.
Warren.
Warren, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm finding my picture.
You muted yourself
Oh, you
again.
were there.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yes, sir.
We had 40 cottages and now we're down to 10 cottages. And I might add that when we do close these buildings, we do take all the asbestos out and all the, that type of material. So if there's ever plans to reuse them somewhere else, that they will be, they're fully cleaned out to be used. But we're down to 10 cottages right now from 40.
And is there any talk of how those buildings would be used in the future?
It's not really.
Currently, there's a prohibition. Oh, I'm sorry, Warren.
That was going to say I would defer to you.
Thanks. There's a prohibition to admitting new residents to the campus by statute. So had there not been a pandemic, I likely would have had opportunity to talk with the administration more in more detail around the future use of Southbury and what sort of trajectory and projections for repurposing we might be on, but we have not had time yet. I did indicate to the administration that we hopefully will be able to find time soon to have those discussions, but at present there's no concrete long-term plan for the future of Southbury beyond our continued downsizing of its use.
All right. Well, thank you. I ride by there, not recently, but I ride by there sometimes getting on 84 to go to Danbury. It's a beautiful campus. It's a lot of space not to be used. So I would hope that at some point we could figure out how we can capitalize on that and use it. So thank you. I see Representative Piscopo has his hand up.
All right, got it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I don't know, maybe staff can help me with this. Going through with the governor's, just the governor's capital program in our budget book, and it seems that you've requested a lot more than the 2 million that you made note of in your testimony, Commissioner. Oh, and thank you very much for being here. Appreciate your testimony. Can you enlighten me on that? Did you have
So there, there are additional projects and build outs that we could do. We have existing money already available to us. This is money in addition to that. We put together a list of projects, and this was the governor's recommendation and probably about what we can handle in any given span of time at this point while we're managing the pandemic. I don't have the details of the rest of our proposal in front of us. I don't know that there were any non-health and safety nothing that was imperative that was left out of the proposal, as I understand it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, do you have your unallocated figure right in front of you? I'm sorry, I don't have the paper in front of me.
I do not, Scott or Warren. Warren?
Yeah, I could get that back to you, but I did put in a capital budget plan. You know, we do have a quite broad agency throughout the state, so you know, there are, I would say, a lot more than the 2 million, but as the commissioner said, with the pandemic and stuff, it's been quite hard to get out to a lot of these projects. So I would say that would be a fair figure right now.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Eric, am I correct with saying there's a $12 million unallocated balance?
Yes, our records show 12.9 million, almost 13 million of unallocated funds within their main fire safety and environmental improvement fund.
Representative Piscopo, do you have that? All right. Thank you, Eric. Commissioner Shep, I don't see any other questions. Are there any other questions that
I see Senator Martin. I see Senator Martin's looking to get on. Senator
Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I do have just a few questions. Commissioner, how many buildings, I'm going to try to be consistent with all these agencies here so that we can have a good understanding of how big of a responsibility you all have in the buildings that you maintain. How many buildings do you currently maintain?
So it may be easier to talk about locations than buildings because Southbury has many buildings, but it's one location. So there's 10 cottages and several outbuildings in use at Southbury, including fire department, power plant, and several other administrative buildings. We have multiple buildings on the campus of the Northwest Center, Lower Fairfield campus, and Hartford Regional Center. Those are each one location. Currently, we operate approximately in public 35 group homes and I believe 11 office buildings, administrative office buildings statewide. And some of those are more than a building, but some of those are rentals, some of those are owned, some of those are state property.
We also have numerous.
In addition to that, we have. Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, we also have around 40 conversion homes that were once our homes, but the private agencies are leasing them from us, but we're still responsible for the main repairs. So we still have those out there too.
Okay.
That is true. Thank you for the clarification, Warren. And we have Camp Harkness and Camp Quinnebog are also under our umbrella.
Are there any major capital improvements going forward that we should be aware of?
I don't believe that there's anything at this time. I don't know, Warren, if you have any particular projects lined up for this next biennium.
Yeah, well, we have numerous projects lined up. One is that the fuel tanks at Southbury, they're over their 30-year limit. We have to replace those. We have main electrical switch gear down at LFC that needs to be replaced. We have septic tanks that are overflowing that need to be replaced. We've got to have quite a few things out there that really need doing.
And that would be part of the 12 million that's been unallocated so far?
Correct. I did put in, you know, I guess the governor, you know, came up with the 2 million, but my was 8 million and 10 million, you know, sure, we're not gonna be able to get to that, but we have a lot of stuff out there.
So we're sort of deferring some of this stuff from actually taking place because of the unallocated amounts here.
Correct. Right now, we are. We're in a pretty big pinch right now with actual cash on hand to address some of these major issues.
Yeah. I just have one other additional question regarding Southbury and the fire, I guess, I don't know if you call it a department or not, but
Yep.
you guys still, thought I heard you say that you maintain that as well.
Yep.
So we still have a fire sort of department out there.
It has been downsized quite a bit. It operates on a limited number of hours and provides support to other areas outside of Southbury, but on an on-call basis. We surrendered our ambulance license from there, and we are looking to get out of the, at some point, we will no longer be operating the fire department there, but we don't have the final transition on that.
I know that
Complete.
there was discussion a couple of years back, I can't remember, it's 4 or 5 years back, but about closing the Southbury training facility. And a lot of it had to deal with contractual, contracts with the unions, and also maybe more so with the residents and their family members. How soon before, the last of the patients, I'll call them, if that's the right term. I apologize if it's not, but how soon before we see that?
So that's the conversation that I still need to have, but the average age is in the low 60s. There's 145 or so people that remain living on campus. And I don't know exactly when the time will come, but we have some ideas we'd like to talk with the administration about so that we may avoid conversations about moving lifelong residents off the campus and into the community, perhaps approaching it from a different way. And hopefully, as we continue to ramp up our immunizations, we'll have some bandwidth to do just that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner, I know that some of those people have been their entire life and sit on human services, so I've heard the conversations and the fears that many families have about that as their families and their life. So I hope it'll be a gentle conversation taking place, and I know based on what you said that.
Yeah. Senator Moore, I appreciate those sentiments. I've seen other states close institutions and literally having to physically remove people from their homes to make that happen, and I don't wish to ever be in that particular situation. We preach a brand of service delivery that is person-centered in nature, and while there are reasons we should consider the future use of Southbury, I don't know that anybody who I've had conversation with thinks physically removing people from their homes to make a point is a good idea.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Senator Moore, I don't know if Rep. Claire Dietrich, she got kicked out of the room and now she's back. She had her hand up before, but it could have been an issue.
Yes. You can unmute yourself, Representative Claridis.
It looks like she froze up.
Yeah, it looks like.
Trying to unmute.
Are there any other questions while maybe she can get into the room? She's probably having a poor connection.
Yeah, she's back in the room, but I
Looks
don't
like
know.
But she's frozen?
Somebody.
No, she's got a second dialogue box open, Senator Moore. Are you there, Representative Claridis Dietrich? She's connecting to audio. It says on my screen.
I see it.
Hi, I'm sorry. I had a
That's
bad
okay.
signal, so I'm going to make my question very fast. You said that you have issues with the sewage spilling over. Did you address that?
You're
I'm
breaking.
sorry.
Septic tank.
We do have, I think you mentioned sewer, and we do have a few septic systems that we are in the process of replacing and we have to replace.
Okay,
not
but
in
they're
an
presently
unsafe-
not overflowing.
Right, they're not, they have overflowed, but we have addressed them. But some of them are in a critical state right now where we're gonna have to do something this spring. I didn't mean to present the picture that we had sewage
Okay.
flowing around the yards.
Representative Claridis Dietrich, is that good?
All right, thank you.
You're
Because that could
welcome.
be an environmental issue, obviously. Thank
Yeah.
you, Madam Chair.
Right.
You're welcome. Representative Piscopo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Martin sparked one more question in me. When you were describing the group homes, you said that you had about 35. Is there, you lead me to believe that that we're not responsible for any major capital improvement to the privately run group homes. Do they have
So
requests?
So thank you. To be clear, there are 35 that we operate. Warren provided an estimate of, I think it was an additional 40 or so that we continue to use bond funding to support because we are still the owners of those homes, the state of Connecticut. Beyond that, there's another 800 in the private sector. Those repairs to those homes are funded in a variety of ways, but through the room and board program at DSS is where the money for physical repairs and the upkeep of those other 800 homes or so, that's where that money resides, and that's a separate issue from bonding.
Thank you again, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands up. Commissioner, is there anything you'd like to add in the last couple of minutes that you'd like us to know?
No, there's nothing I have in particular to add at this time. I appreciate the opportunity to testify before you today.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner. We appreciate the work you do. Thank you and your staff for coming before us. Have a great day.
Take care.
Thank you.
You too. Good to see you all.
You too. So Tom, do we have anybody
Yeah.
here early?
Christina, who did we let in? Do we know the name?
Yeah, I let in Daryl Grant.
So I don't think they're totally ready, Senator Moore, because I know that Commissioner Guerrera, former state rep Guerrera, is giving us the testimony. So I don't see him in here. So we might have to take 5.
All right, well, let's take 5.
All right. We'll let you know. I can just tell you when they're ready.
Okay.
All right.
We're still streaming though, right?
Yes, we are. Yep. Just a FYI to everyone, we are still streaming. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Senator Moore, I do see Commissioner Guerrera here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. We haven't started.
Cool. Tom, you're on mute?
Yeah, Senator Moore is here, so she's running the show.
I can't hear you, Tom.
Really?
Representative Guerrero, I'm here. Are you ready to start early?
See if it's turned up all the way.
I think it's on his end.
I think it's you're off mute, but it might be your computer that's not turned up for sound.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't hear you.
Yeah, remember when it sounds, what do they do? I think you can't have something open, right? It doesn't matter, like, Teams can't be open. Yes. Teams is closed down.
It doesn't look like what you call it.
We're on Zoom.
Carol told me what they did.
We're on Zoom. Yep. So right click.
Oh.
Can I do it?
Yeah. All right, it's lost everything.
No, it's
You're muted now, Commissioner.
So we're just waiting for them. I'm gonna send an email. But is Tony's camera on? Can they see them?
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
We can hear you and we can see you.
I can't hear you though. Senator.
Press mute for a second.
Can you hear us now? You're muted, Commissioner.
See if that does anything.
Hold on one second, guys. I'm going to try to get out and come back in here.
Commissioner, I can hear
Hear
you.
you. I apologize.
Commissioner, can you hear me? Obviously, he can't hear me.
Yeah, he definitely can't hear us. He just said he's going to log back in, so we'll let him in and see if that works.
Could you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
IT's at the commissioner's desk right now, just trying to figure out his sound. We just need 1 second. Sorry.
Can't hear them.
Tony went to my office.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
In the meantime,
Hi, everyone.
Maybe.
Oh, tell him I
I
got
have
it.
the commissioner coming to my office.
You got it?
Oh.
You
Jeez.
got it.
Nothing's easy at DMV. Hold on.
Thank God for Millie.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you.
No, thank you. I apologize, guys.
That's okay.
How are you, Senator?
I'm good. So yours was at 2:30, so I'll give you some time to get started. It's okay.
So I'm ready whenever you are.
All right. Do you have anybody else with you, Commissioner?
Yes, I do, Senator. I've got Abby with me and Daryl Grant, and I got Angelo from Facilities, Abby Lawson. Yep.
Well, welcome. And this is You're our third person. Representative Dorinda Borer is here with me. She's my co-chair. Senator Martin and Representative Piscopo, they're our ranking members. We're a new team working together on the bonding. So we have your information, and if you'd like to give us your presentation now, we will accept it.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone. A lot of familiar faces. So basically, it's the $500,000. I don't want to go too much in depth, but I'll answer any questions that you may have. But with the $500,000, it's because DMV has been on the path of modernization, Senator and colleagues, is that we're trying to figure out, rather than spending a ton of money in regards to fixing and doing more work to our facilities, we're going to do a broad brush in regards to what is going to be entailed in the future and how the new DMVs will look like. And we've got this $500,000 that we will use to look at all the facilities in regards to what the overall plan will be in the next coming years here.
So, Commissioner, so this is basically to pay for a plan, a master plan, and that's it, the 500,000?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So you have an unallocated balance of $1.3 million.
Yes.
And what are your plans for that?
That money's already, I believe is being used, correct? It's for, one was for, in Norwalk, of a drainage issue that they were talking about. Do you have the numbers on that? Let me just give it to you. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. And it was a drainage repairs in the Norwalk, Senator. And also in Old Saybrook, we had some flooring repairs and carpet of $250, and the Hamden parking lot, which is unfortunately, it's seen its better days. You're looking at almost $750,000 for a parking lot there.
Where's that?
In Hamden?
In Hamden?
Yes.
So you have, so this master plan, when, what's your implementation guidelines or timeline look like?
Well, I think it's going to be, once we okay everything, then we'll start moving forward in regards to having them start researching out, going out to the master plan. I believe it's a firm called, I think it was Bloom Consultants that will do the master plan for us.
You've already done the request for proposals?
Yeah,
The
we had to
best
take
plan?
my Loom and Broom, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, right, Abby? Or did we not go out yet? No, we did not go out yet.
All right. So it hasn't gone out to bid yet for the plan?
No.
Okay. But do you have a timeline?
We're hoping as soon as we get the go ahead, we'll put it out there ASAP.
All right. And so all of the branches that you have right now, are they all in place? Do you have any thoughts of expansion?
Senator, that's a good question. I don't know what in regards to expansions may look like for us in the future. We have, as you know, we've done some appointment systems. We've gotten some very good reviews that people like our appointment system. We've worked with some other companies, other partnerships like AAA and Nutmeg Credit Union that do a specific part of certain transactions for us. So I think we really have to look at the holistic picture before we can say whether we need to expand more buildings or maybe cut back on more buildings.
Well, I do want to say this. I was able to get my license online. It was pretty smooth.
Wasn't it nice?
Yeah, it was very nice, very, very nice, and register my car, and it was smooth. So I appreciate that. That's a change and going in the right direction. So I'm going to see if anybody else has questions for you. Yes, Senator Martin has a question for you, and then followed by Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Tony. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thank you. Tony, how many facilities are we talking about right now that you plan on covering in this master plan?
I believe it's what? How many? 12? 14.
14? And
Yeah.
Tony, is that plan going to include, or what does that plan actually include? Are you talking about getting an assessment on what needs to be done on the buildings, or is it regarding, all right, here's the model. We're changing our model right now. We are going to include people registering online. Not too many, not as many people are going to be coming into the facilities. So can you just be a little bit more descriptive as to what that master plan includes?
Senator, thank you for that question. I think we're going to have to look at it from A to Z. One is, if we don't do more things online, what is the DMV facilities going to look like? And especially with COVID now and everything, even though we may obviously be we're heading towards the right path here, but we're still going to have appointment systems, right? That we're not going to have people just congregating at the facilities. Two is that, do we decide that some of these facilities that are closer to other facilities, do we maybe just make it into one bigger facility, all right, to accommodate both facilities in those areas? So I think, again, it's a little, I hate to sound like this, but it's a little premature until I see all the notes and from the consultant of how the best way to look at this to move forward. If we decide that we're going to go that route in regards to more things online, all right, that we're not going to need as much space. And if we don't need as much space, can we consolidate some of these branches? If it's that we're still going to need the space because no matter what, people don't necessarily want to do everything online and they want to come in, all right, then what is the new DMV going to look like in regards to the windows, in regards to the flow pattern, in regards to once you start, and to be quite honest, once you start ripping out one part of the building, you've got building codes that you got to adhere to,
right?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm sure many of you maybe visited the Weathersfield one here. I can't touch a window because of issues that if I touch a window, there might be some asbestos, there might be anything like that. And then we have to redo the whole configuration where it could cost millions, multi-millions of dollars.
So Tony, the plan, how long is that going to take you to get?
We don't know yet how long the plan is going to be. It could take up to a year.
And then is the hopes to sort of come up with an overall plan as to what the capital improvement requests are going to be for over 5 years or 10 years or?
Absolutely. Once we have that, then we can give you more specific as that within the first 3 years, this is what we can do. Within 5 years, this is what the master plan should accomplish.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your answers. Same here. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner, are there any buildings that are beyond use?
Yes, there is. Good question, Senator. There was one in Middletown that we got rid of because of COVID. It was just too small and it couldn't accommodate the people coming in there. And second, there was one in Putnam, Senator, where it was the same situation. And now we're working with the chamber in Putnam to find a location that can accommodate those constituents or those customers out in that area in a bigger space, but maybe work a partnership with the town of Putnam where we can lease it for free, but put all the material inside there.
Thank you. I see Representative Meskers.
I believe Representative Dorinda was up ahead of me, so I'm going to see if that's okay. She was waving at me. I want to let her go, and then I'll go after.
What a gentleman. Thank you. Hi, Deputy Commissioner. How are you?
Good, Dorinda.
Good to see you. Good to see you always. So glad to hear that you're reevaluating the locations based on the move to online services and the partnerships with Nutmeg. I think those are terrific as well. So just curious, I know how we fell behind, right, during COVID because we couldn't open up. How caught up are we? Like, how well did the appointments work? Are we caught up? Or does that make for a slower process?
No, thank you for that question, Representative. Honestly, it's truly an amazing story. And not because I'm the deputy commissioner here, but you have to remember that this was an agency, right, that we couldn't shut down basically. So during COVID, back a year ago, we had people working in the back office. They were still mailing in their registrations, right? They had to get their licenses. We extended their licenses. And then we went to this appointment system. All right, we opened that back, I think it was June 23rd, if I remember correctly, where we said we're going to start to reopen. And it's been unbelievable. And by going online over the last 3 months, Representative Bora, is that we took into consideration when we did all this, because of those licenses were going to expire, how did we send them invitations to do it online? So therefore, they weren't going to be caught up in that funnel of the appointment system. And it has been working tremendously. And I got to be honest with you, this is the path we're going on, because like all of us know, let's not kid ourselves, all right, is that people don't like to come to the DMV, all right, because in the past, you would have to wait, you know what I'm saying? It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. Today, people are telling me that it's such a wonderful experience to come into your office for a 10 o'clock appointment, get waited at 10:05 and be out of there by 10:20 and go on with my day.
Yeah, I have to say I've sent constituents and helped them, and actually your department has helped me set folks up for those appointments, and the feedback has been really very, very positive. So how about the IT capacity? Is the 500K evaluation, is that going to evaluate?
No, no.
Okay, so where do we stand with any equipment or capital needs to continue to move operations online?
Yeah, okay, that's a whole different area, because I thought we were just talking about the facilities part. But with that, I could still answer that. And I'm sure that, you know, there is an IT modernization funding bonding mechanism that if we need more money for that, that we'll have to go in front of them probably for it.
But is part of that evaluation, this consultant going to look at the IT capacity, or
No,
is that?
no,
No, just facilities.
Just the structure of the facilities right now. And then we will tell them what our plans are in regards to modernization and computerizing, whether it could be someday, you know, hopefully in the near future that maybe represent, we could have kiosks in certain area, right? At the supermarkets or whatever it may be, so you can get some of these transactions done. So this is, you know, something that we're looking at.
Great. And then just one other question, how did you derive at 500K?
Well, I didn't really derive at that. That's what I was told. So that's the amount of monies that I got. So there you go.
Okay, so I'm sure somebody
We'll
got
make it work, Representative.
somebody got estimates somewhere, right?
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for I think I'm going to listen to the rest of folks' questions, see if I have any others, but I just want to take the opportunity for thanking you and your whole staff for really working through a difficult year and getting our constituents through and continuing the services.
Yeah, no, thank you, Representative. You've been great. I know we've had many conversations.
I sent a lot of people your way, so.
No, but it's important because I think that, you know, we are a front-facing agency. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of agencies, unfortunately, you know, because of COVID, you know, didn't have to come into their office. We had to. That's what I'm saying. I am so proud of this team here and these are employees that really, you know, think about it. During COVID, we had to put the proper precautions in place, plexiglass, social distancing. Do you know what I mean? People taking temperatures to keep our employees safe and also keeping the public safe, because we know that we couldn't shut down.
Yep, great. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you to Millie too.
I will definitely let Millie know.
Thank you. Representative Piscopo and then Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I think I'll set Representative Mesker's example on being a gentleman, and I'll yield to him.
Oh, well, you know, well, if you all want to be gentlemen, I want to tell you, Representative Mary Machinsky is waiting to speak.
Well, then I'll second. I will cede to Mary Machinsky.
Representative Machinsky, are you there?
She's on mute, I think.
She's not there.
No, I'm here. I'm here, Madam Chair. When you guys go out of order, that throws me off.
Oh, well, the gentlemen here today.
They're gentlemen. I have to admit, they are gentlemen. And thank you, gentlemen. But I want to ask Commissioner, first of all, I want to thank him for the drive-up sites in the shopping malls, such as the one in North Haven. That's a phenomenal site. You go in there. I took an elderly relative in there. You go in there, they serve you exactly on time. You're out of there in a short time. And a lot of these older people don't have computer access, so they're still going to have to go in person. But do you have a way of having them call in to DMV to do the setup work for an appointment just using a phone without using a computer? Because some of these folks do not have computer access.
Yes, and that's, how are you, Ms. Representative? Nice to hear your voice.
Nice to hear you too.
That's a good question, Mary, and we are working on that. In fact, it is our goal too, I will throw this out there, because this is a concept of the commissioner and myself, is that we hope to have mobile units too, Representative. And those mobile units, we're hoping to have 4 of them that can hit each quadrant of the state to maybe go to those senior centers, right?
Right.
And so they can accommodate them with just, with an ID or to renew their license. Because as we all know, a lot of them can't get around. And we've noticed that during this pandemic, all right? The ones that had it probably the hardest time was our seniors. And we felt as though that we have to be let's be proactive on this and try to incorporate some type of mobile units with technology that allows them to go to certain locations at a senior center, let them know that we're here and can take care of their transactions.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Even if you hit the senior center once a month.
Exactly.
That would work well with that population. Okay, and my other question is, you probably saw my bill. I had a constituent who missed paying her re-registration, and then she had her car towed away on the spot in a highway stop along with a whole bunch of other frantic people. And she was trying to pay her registration on the phone, and they would not let her. And I'm looking for some discretion on the part of the agency. If I'm not sure why she didn't get her notice, and and if there's any way to reach out to these people to remind them by email or to allow them to pay by their phone if they are stopped. And it was no intention of hers to miss her re-registration date. She did not intend to. She was just a very busy working mom who had just come back from a medical appointment. And she wanted to pay it, and she had her phone there, and they said, no, you have to have your car towed away, and which seems, very inefficient to me. So, and harsh on the constituents. So, is there a way we can do that where they have a chance to get back in the good graces of registration with their phones?
Yeah, let me look into it, Mary. Maybe what you could do, if you don't mind, give me a call after this too, and let me get all that information if you don't mind.
Okay, I realize that's not a bonding question, but since you're here and I'm here, I had to ask.
Not a problem. And Representative, and to all of you here, thank you for all the questions. But I mean this sincerely, that it is our obligation as an agency that we always try to take very serious our customers. And we know that, we know how important a license is. All right, people need to use it for work. We know how important IDs are. And I will tell you this, that this team has tried to make every effort, even because of this pandemic, to reach out to these people to make sure that we take care of them. Because I am a true believer of customer service. They expect that, and we should give it to them.
Thank you. Now, I have 2 gentlemen waiting. Representative Meskers and Representative Piscopo. Representative Meskers, would you like to go?
Well, I appreciate for the 2 gentlemen. You could have said 1, and then we would have tried to figure out which one of them was the non-gentleman. So I much appreciate that. First, I want to salute our Deputy Commissioner there. He's done a great job. When we talk about the bonding for the committees, I had a conversation with you. I don't know whether you need statutory assistance on this in considering when I think about DMV, the physicality, the physical locations, obviously better off at your site where people do their practice driving or get licensed by parking, et cetera. But in the renewal of licenses, it's when we look at that, you're talking about kiosks, you're talking about remote. I'd also like to re-entertain, and I mentioned this to you, and I don't know whether we have to untie your hands, consideration of using municipalities. And what I've been told by municipalities is if they could get $5 or $10 more in the processing fee, it would go past the break even and they'd make some money. So I'd like us to consider whether or not, when you look at the full scope of what the facilities you need to build out, given, what are we, 168 or 167 municipalities? I'd love to see, in terms of renewals, if we couldn't do some of them at municipal offices. You know, certainly those facilities are being updated by the taxpayers already through local real estate taxes. Now we're going to bond for facility. If we're going to bond for facility, I wanted to put, if you'll pardon the expression, our dangerous drivers practicing and getting their driving license, but I wouldn't mind the renewals being done at our municipal offices, so they don't have to be quite as strong against impact. But it might make sense to look at the municipals for renewals. Might save us some money.
Consider it done.
Okay. Thank you very much. And now I will cede to the reigning gentleman, Representative Piscopo, with the acceptance of the chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative Maskers, and thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say hi to my friend, the commissioner. Appreciate it. It's been a while, Tony.
Hey,
Good
John.
to see you.
Nice to see you, John.
Can I safely assume that your line item for new land acquisitions with this grand plan going into effect, may I assume that we're not going to be doing any new land acquisitions or property acquisitions? It looks like a pretty good line item you had there, a good, pretty sizable request.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, Representative. You know, with regards to land acquisitions, are you talking about us purchasing lands or buildings? Is that it?
Yes, land and property acquisition for new and replacement facilities. So
yeah, I think Representative, and thank you for that question, John. Is that what we may do, and again, I just want to have this open dialogue. What we may do is, do we consolidate or get rid of maybe two of them to open up maybe a super center one? So that's what we have to look at.
I understand. And thank you again. Great to see you, Tony.
Nice to see you, John.
Thank you. Representative Moore, your hand is still up. Do you still have a question?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I just had a follow-up to Representative Mesker's point on the municipalities incorporating DMV services at the municipal offices. We did do that in West Haven. We passed a bill to allow for an increase in the charge. It was nominal, but it was more of a convenience fee for folks who are going to City Hall to get their license renewed as well. And that was in response to, there was a DMV services in Milford. So it left a big gap in our area. It worked out wonderfully, but of course we closed down due to COVID. But I just want to caution that that is not inexpensive, because you need to bring in the equipment, you need to have security. So it's not a matter of an office in a department just opening up that services. So yes, does it allow for convenience? Yes. And does it take, the whole idea was to alleviate some of the congestion in some of the regional offices like Bridgeport and Hamden, because we're situated in the middle. So it is a good concept, just cautioning that it's not free. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Terry Wood.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair, and great discussion. I realize it's not on bonding at all, but it is a valuable discussion. I too concur with, I think it would be terrific to have the renewals in the municipal offices. It makes a great deal of sense, and just supporting that thought. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Deputy Commissioner. It is nice to see her. We missed you in the House chamber.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Miss you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Well, Deputy Commissioner, I think we're just happy to have you here to just talk to you. We didn't have a lot of bonding, but I think you're missed. And we
Yes.
appreciate having this conversation with you. And I also want to commend you. I mean, I remember 5 years ago where everything was falling apart at DMV.
Yes.
We were receiving so many calls. It was just horrible. So you all have come a mighty long way. And I know you've got a great team. And I know you're there just recently, but we appreciate the work that you're doing. And the less calls we get from our constituents means you're doing a better and improved job. So thank you for that.
And thank you, Senator. I do want to emphasize to all of you too that, you know, it's the employees. They're the unsung heroes. They really were during this pandemic. Came here every day knowing that, you know, no one knew what this pandemic was about. Everybody was scared. They didn't know if they're going to catch COVID from people, whatever it was. They're the ones that made this all happen. And I want to make sure that everyone really understands the true commitment that our employees gave to this agency.
Well, thank you. All right.
Thank you. Great seeing everyone.
All right, you too. Take care.
Take care.
All right. So next up would be at 3 o'clock.
I think they're in here, Senator Moore. I think they're all.
They
here.
are?
I
It's
think
the
so.
Department of Department of Education.
Yep.
Are they here? If they're here, we could start.
Yeah, Laura, is your group
If they're
here?
ready.
Everyone
We
here?
are all here. You can feel free to get started.
All right, then. Well, welcome. We look forward to hearing who's the lead. Who will be the lead?
Our commissioner. Oh, there you go.
Hello, Senator.
Oh, I see you now, Commissioner. How are you?
I am very well, thank you.
Good. All right.
So I can take the lead if you're ready. We can get started. Are you good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, Senator Moore, Representative Borer, Senator Martin, Representative Piscopo, and members of the Bonding Subcommittee. My name is Charlene Russell Tucker, Acting Commissioner of the State Department of Education. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you to discuss the Department of Education's bonding needs. The department appreciates your continued support for our capital needs at the Connecticut Technical Education and Career System, CTEX, and the grants we provide to local school districts. The CTEX currently has $3.1 million allocated for minor alterations and improvements to buildings and grounds, the purchase of new and replacement equipment and vehicles, and technology upgrades at the schools. We are grateful that the governor's budget recommends $15.1 million and $14.1 million over the biennium for these purposes. The CTEX will continue to prioritize the available funding to meet technology needs and infrastructure repairs that arise during the 2021 school year. The most recent charter school facility bond awards were approved by the State Bond Commission in July and August of 2018 to provide funds to assist state charter schools in financing school building projects and general improvements to school buildings. In total, $6.9 million was issued for this purpose based on submitted state charter school applications. There is currently an unallocated balance of $7.2 million that is marked for charter school facility bond projects. The most recent low performing school bond award was approved by the State Bond Commission in September 2020 to address distance learning technology needs associated with the coronavirus pandemic. A total of $5.5 million was issued for this purpose based on submitted LEA applications. There's currently an unallocated balance of $4.5 million that was earmarked for low-performing school bond projects, and we're appreciative that the governor's budget recommends authorizing $5 million in each year of the biennium for this purpose. Again, thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we're happy to answer any questions you have at this time. I am joined by Deputy Commissioner Designate Smith, who oversees our charter schools. Our CFO, Kathy Dempsey, is with us. Our superintendent from the Technical High School, Jeff Wibby, is here. And of course, you know Laura Stefan, who is our Chief of Staff and Legislative Liaison. So thank you very much, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you and your staff for coming before us today. I appreciate that. And I do have a question. You mentioned the distance learning. $5.5 million was used for the low performing school grants.
Yes.
Is that correct? So was that for equipment? How was that money used?
Great question, and I'll have Desi jump in to speak to especially the technology needs. As you know, that was a big drive for us this past year. So Desi.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good afternoon, everyone. So a big part of that, Senator, was for schools to replace and refresh some of the student level technology needs, the Chromebooks, laptop cards, but it also went beyond that to address the teacher needs around the technology, making sure that teachers had the equipment and the laptops, some of the interactive smart boards and things like that as they are juggling the in-person students along with the kids who are zooming into the classroom. And some of that also went to wireless access points, which we know was an issue in some of our districts. Some of our buildings are older. And so we needed to have additional wireless access points within those buildings so that that technology could be utilized.
So do you still see a gap in those services?
Well, right now, I think given that the and total allocation wasn't necessarily utilized for the eligible schools, I think that we've done a pretty good job of addressing that gap. We do hear from time to time about certain places that have very specific challenges or struggles. And so our agency, along with the Commission for Ed Technology, is working with certain districts on very specific things that they are having some issues with. But I do think this went a long way in addressing the gaps that our districts, our students, and our teachers have around the technology needs.
Is there any one area of Connecticut that is suffering more than any place else?
I think that, you know, it's a little bit different depending on where you are. Some of the need that we have heard and some of the feedback and the support we've needed to provide, honestly, is helping parents learn how to utilize some of that technology and navigate some of those challenges with their kids at home. We know that is an issue. We've also heard about, you know, very rural parts of the state that we've connected with the Commission for Ed Technology to try to address some of the internet capability in certain parts of the state. So there are definitely challenges that remain, and I don't want to give the impression that everything is all set and everything's fixed and there's not a need. But in terms of what the bond was set aside for, I am confident that we've done a good job addressing getting the technology into the schools that need it the most.
And Senator, if I could just add, we continue to talk with families and communities to find out where gaps may still exist. I've prioritized also speaking to our students who are experiencing homelessness to find out what's happening in those spaces as well. And so we continue to try to problem solve those areas as we go forward. And as we hear of needs, we're continuing to make those connections as well.
So Commissioner, do you work with Department of Social Services to address those needs?
So are you saying needs beyond the technology, Senator?
Beyond the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just maybe a month and a half ago, for example, when we think about behavioral health, really pulled together behavioral health partners and providers along with DCF and DSS as we were exploring even payment options and what can be better organized around that process. So we're continuing to take a look at those issues because it is so critically important for our students, especially if we're talking about learning recovery and what needs to happen over the next summer and the next few months.
Thank you. I won't take up all your time. My co-chair, Barbara, has her hand up. Several people have their hands up, so I want to make sure I give everybody
Yep,
opportunity.
and I think, thank you, Senator. I think Representative Nicole Claridis Dietrich had her hand up before me. So I'll defer to her.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here today and your staff. We appreciate it. My first question is, how long has it been since your system has received bond funding?
Thank you. I'll have our CFO jump into that question.
Would you mind if I clarify the question? Are you asking specifically about the technical high school system?
Yes, I'm sorry, the technical school system. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think the superintendent is probably better able to answer, but I believe it's been a couple of years since they've had a specific allocation because a large amount of funds had remained unallocated. And so we have now spent down to, as Commissioner Russell Tucker said, a little over $3 million remains, which is why I believe the governor programmed for the biennium the 15.1 and 14.1 to make sure that we meet the needs of the system.
Okay, for the tech school systems, I thought it was much longer than that. I thought it was more than 5 years or so. Oh, that's okay. So my next question, the equipment, Platt Tech, they're presently building a new school in Milford. Is once that school is built, is all the equipment that they'll be having in this new school all up to date? And that doesn't just apply to Platt Tech, just all the tech schools in the state.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Kathy, I think that they're referencing I think that the representative is referencing how long has it been since a capital equipment bonding, which would go back to 2014, that was connected to the manufacturing bonding package. But at the same time, we also receive every couple of years operating capital bonding that happens fairly regularly. So I think to go back to your question, I believe it was 2014, 2015, when the technical high schools received a substantial bonding package that included the update and upgrade of all of the, the big manufacturing machines, the CNC machines, those types of machines, so it's going back around 7 or 8 years now for that package. However, as CFO Dempsey mentioned, it's been only a couple of years since we have received bonding just for operating capital funds. That's like when our boilers or our furnaces break, right, replacing that. So there's two different things there.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. But I'm also would like some more clarification as to are our technical schools up to date where we have all the different programs and we're educating our kids to go out right into the field? Are they, compared to other states, are we truly up to date with the equipment, or are they using outdated equipment, I guess is my question as well. And is it updated? I know everybody always wants the newest and the best no matter what, but I'm just talking general. Are they prepared? Are they truly prepared when they get out? Because our equipment is too old to prepare them.
We're in fair shape, because as you know, a lot of the equipment and the machines are based on the most up-to-date software. As you know, everything is contingent on software. We try to make sure that we're instructing the kids on the manufacturing equipment that are utilized by the big manufacturing firms like EB and so forth. So I would say that we do still have a ways to go to bring that up to speed. And unfortunately, the answer is one you're probably not going to want to hear. It's always evolving. Equipment is always changing and evolving. We have, I don't even know what this means, but we've got 5-axis machines and 3-axis machines for CNC, and these things are unbelievable. But it's constantly evolving. And, so it is something that we're due for upgrades, particularly in our manufacturing and our mechatronics shops at this time.
So that 15 million, does it cover everything the C-Tech system needs to get the programs on par with what's currently using in the industry?
The 15 million for capital would be great. I mean, we were told to kind of have an A, B, and a C list. So I think we had prepared, anything all the way up to $41 million. And if you gave us $20, we would be appreciative and we would put it to good use. But $15 million would really would take care of us in a good way. And going back to your question about Platt Tech, they are building new construction. They have a furniture, fixtures, and equipment budget built in, but it wouldn't be enough to cover the full amount of equipment for the school. But it would put them in a very good shape.
Okay, thank you for your answers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. So I have a question. So is school construction included in this budget? No, okay, thank you. Representative Meskers, if I miss someone's hand, someone please let me know. I'm having a little bit of a problem.
You
Is your
you
hand
have
up?
again, you're shortchanging poor Dorinda, who I will cede to. Don't worry.
Just
That's
take a
okay.
moment, Representative Meskers.
Good thing we're all polite and we're letting each other go. So
Thank
first of all, welcome Deputy Commissioner to our committee. Good to see you here. So just for clarification on the equipment for the school, there was 5.5 million that was authorized, but only 4.5 million has been allocated. Is that correct?
Good afternoon, Representative. Are you speaking to the low performing bonds? Okay, there's $10 million available. The bond commission, we brought all $10 million to the bond commission in September. We then, at the same time, had an RFP out to the schools asking what it was that they needed. So they ended up only needing a portion of the whole 10 million. And so for us to use the remainder, we would have to go back to the bond commission to seek a reallocation of it. But no, so they drew down of the 10, they drew a little over 5 million, leaving us with a balance.
Oh, okay. So I'm just, because I'm reading the testimony. Hold on. I thought it said a total of 5.5 million was issued for the purpose of the low performing school bonds based on submitted applications. There's currently an unallocated balance of 4.5 million that was marked but not used. So is that not correct?
No, that is correct. So there was 10 million in total that went out. We used a little over 5 of it, and there remains about 4.5 of it still to be used.
Still to be used, but allocated? So it's been allocated through the bonding commission?
Yes.
Okay, it says unallocated, so we'll just correct that. Now, with the federal funding that we're receiving, I imagine some of that is for distant learning. Will that 4.5 that hasn't been allocated, that hasn't been used, still be needed?
Still use these funds, and you're right, where there is a significant amount of federal funding coming in. Those funds are, for the most part, to be dedicated to COVID-related activities. The low-performing bond funds have a broader perspective than just distance learning. That happened to be because there was a current need. That is why we specifically went out for that purpose. But, you know, examples, and Deputy Commissioner Nesmith could provide some more, but might be updating science labs in one of the schools. So it's taking the schools that have kind of gone for the longest period of time without maintenance, without updates, and providing them an opportunity to do those updates because they wouldn't actually fall under the normal school construction. So we will need those funds.
Got it. Okay. The error is on my end. I thought it was all for distant learning, electronic at home use. So just going back to the school construction, can somebody, because we have new members that were, well, I'm new to the bond commission, but not new to the legislature, but we do have new reps. Can you just walk us through how school construction does work?
So school construction is actually no longer administered by the Department of Education. It was moved over to DAS almost 8 years. Actually, it's hard to, the originating legislation was about 8 years ago, but it's probably been about 4 where it's completely housed over there. And so they create a priority list, which comes to the legislature. And I'm going to stop there only because I'm not sure what the process is at the moment for going, getting on the list and what types of projects. I mean, that would be something that DAS would need to respond to.
Thank you. And it kind of leads to my next question. Does the Department of Education have any input towards that priority list?
if there is a program that is going to be the creation of an interdistrict choice program, such as magnet schools in the vocational career technical education high schools, Superintendent Wibby absolutely has input on that. But typically the time the department provides input, other than just data, because we provide enrollment data and that kind of thing, but from a programmatic standpoint would be if there was choice programming. So like a magnet school would be a time where they would come to us for input.
Okay. So that brings me, boy, these are good segues to magnet schools and like CREC. Do those come through the Department of Education? Do they go through the DAS, which is OPM, or how does that, where does that funding come from? What process?
So the magnet school itself would be approved by the Commissioner of Education. So the programming itself is approved by the department. The school construction piece then is approved and follows the process through DAS, the normal school construction process. But that does not begin until the department has approved the programmatic end.
Okay, thanks. Let me see. How about when we have programs like innovative programs at high school, like if they're pilot programs that are pipelines to jobs, right? The employment workforce. Are those bonding programs that will come through the Department of Education? So let's say a pilot program like an incubator, we want to have this program that is a direct pipeline and we're going to work with an industry on prepping them for specific jobs.
We don't currently have any bonding authority that would address that type of circumstance.
Okay, so that would be more operational. Okay, and I'm asking only because I've seen some bonding requests come in from some of the representatives for pilot programs, and I'm just trying to understand, what buckets. A little confusing with the school construction, with the DAS and the MOU and the Department of Education, not a part of it. So, just trying to sort it all out. And then I think all the technical schools, I think Representative Claire Steges asked all my questions. So I'm going to thank you very much.
And Representative Bohr, maybe we should let DS know ahead of time. I think that would be interesting to figure out what is the process for all of us to know what that is, because many of us are new, but even some of the ones I believe are not new, I don't think we've gone deep into that understanding. So thank you for that question. Representative Meskers.
Thank you. I was just getting a vote in. I appreciate, Madam Chair. I want to go back to Jeff at CTEC and your testimony. So you let slip that the top of the wish list was 41, and you said A, B, and C, and 15 is the inquiry or request, right? The actual request. But you felt you had needs for up to 41 million. Can you tell me where we sit now in terms of capacity at the schools? And if you got from 15 to 20 or 15 to 40, how much more seating and capacity for training you would have in terms of students? And at the last leg of that, do you know what placement looks like going forward in terms of, I won't give you the big lecture, but I've sat on my education board in my town, and I worry we graduate people who go to Starbucks, as a job. So I'm very much in line with what this represents in both for minority recruitment, for opportunity space, for a better career path. So I want to make sure that your type of endeavor is not something we're constraining in terms of what you need to get the capacity of students. And then the backhanded question is, I'm assuming that you've had good consultations with Electric Boat and everybody else in terms of equipment So there's a correlation between what you want and what the graduates are going to do when they finish school, right? So maybe you could speak a little to that without me chewing up all your day.
I may forget a couple of points to that, so I may, Representative, have to come back and say, what did I miss here?
Okay.
But a couple of things to get started. We're putting in a couple of measures to increase our capacity. First and foremost, if you look at the Department of Labor to address the Starbucks part of it, if you look at the Department of Labor statistics, graduates from the technical high schools make on average about $10,000 more than graduates from regular LEA high schools 5 years after graduation.
Okay.
Thinking about technical high school, and I'll get to capacity in a minute, but our high schools have a 97.2 high school graduation rate. And we're very proud that our African-American high school graduation rate is 97.9%, and our Hispanic rate is at the upper end of 96. So we have almost no achievement gap when it comes to our 4-year graduation rate. When the kids come to us, they do really well in graduating high school. We're very proud that over the course of the last 3.5 years that our prevalence rate in special education in 504 has gone from 9% to 12% to 16% to next year. Our incoming freshman class is 17% offers made to special education students. So the idea that the tech system is skimming off the top of all of the local school boards is not accurate. We're very representative. Probably the only area we need to do a much better job is getting more females in than males, because we know females can do a great job in the technical area. So that's kind of our next strategic mission. So we have roughly 11,000 students enrolled and 3,000 adults enrolled in the technical high schools. The one thing that constrains us for the amount of kids that we can process through the system is our contractual limits in our shops. So we can only have 18 kids in a shop per grade at a time. And that's a contractual thing, that's based on our agreement with our unions. So if we want to add more kids, we just have to add more teachers. So for example, if you have a shop with 2 teachers, a manufacturing shop with 2 teachers, you can take 18 kids per year per teacher. So, each teacher can have 72 kids on their rolls. If you have 2 teachers, a shop can have 144 kids. So that's kind of how we figure out our capacity. If you've got 10 shops with 2 teachers, that's the mathematics behind how many kids we can kind of take in. But then you also have space, physical space, parts. But those are how we figure out our capacity. Some of our schools we have to turn away applicants. And some of our schools were, as low as 50% capacity, just based on the area. Some of the areas have kind of waning school-aged children, like in Middlesex County. So it turns into a little bit of a race to who gets the most kids, and it's a little bit of a competition with the local boards. But we're a choice system, and that's kind of how that works. But we are moving towards another model for 11th and 12th graders in local area education boards, where we've just started to take kids in that are 11th and 12th graders, where they go and get their academics from their regular high school, and they can come to the technical high schools in the afternoon. We started a pilot this year in Meriden. We're also going to be extending that down in the Groton area and the Middletown area, not to replace our 9 through 12 programming, but to accentuate. So we may want to see us go from 11,000 high school aged kids to maybe 13, 14,000 down the road. But those would be kids that would be just kind of
bifurcated model, basically. You're saying, okay.
Exactly, because you just can't keep up with the need of training workers. So that's a way to get us working a second shift, very similar to what we do at Bristol Tech. So you'll have your first shift of 9 through 12 kids during the day, and we'd be looking to bring in a second shift and utilizing all that equipment and machinery to train even more kids in the afternoon. It wouldn't make sense for the state to invest in CNC machines in 160 different high schools. We'd like to, like to have it in a couple of regionally where you can have excellent laboratories for kids to learn on and be able to service many different towns.
So if I'm reading between the lines, it sounds like you're not capacity constrained yet, because some places you're over capacity, some places you're under. And now with the bifurcated model, depending on whether you build the facility or locate some of it in a school and make it a regional for that skill set, right? You're either going to build facilities or try to co-locate and take it outside the local district but make it a regional. But you sound like you have a good capacity. You're meeting demand generically, or you're not turning rate 10 or 20% of the eligible student population so far?
Well, what it would allow us to do, we were not looking to build new facilities. We would use what we have already, but where we're turning away a lot of kids, places like Waterbury, we're turning away a lot of kids at Caner Tech. Prince Tech, we've been turning away kids now again, and now believe it's good. We're glad, but we've got more kids applying to come to us in Hamden, New Haven as well. So we want to give those kids another opportunity to get career technical education with us in the afternoon. So, it wouldn't be building new buildings. It would just be giving those kids that didn't get in the first try in the 9 through 12 program a second chance to come in 11 through 12. And then, so those places where there's more interest than we have seats, we can give those kids the opportunity. And, we wouldn't be looking to do it in places where, that we don't really have a wait list, but when we have more applicants than we do have seats.
Okay,
I don't know. I got all I think I might have missed some things there that you asked.
No, the issue on the equipment you use currently, and is the equipment now the 15 million versus 20 versus 30? Is that going to provide a capacity constraint in the short term? I kind of heard maybe not.
No, it shouldn't have anything to do connected to the capacity. It's just making sure that the kids are training on the equipment that they would be working on at Electric Boat or at Sikorsky it's just the most up-to-date equipment so that there's a seamless transition from the kids going from the laboratories in our schools to the floors where they're working in business and industry. We want to make sure that we're training them on the equipment that the business and industry sites and locations are utilizing as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. That was it. Thank you. Sorry for the lengthy questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really, I think, a question for Eric Gray. So, Eric, I heard in the testimony here that we have, some of the monies that we're allocating through bonding is for new equipment, and it seems like it's needs to be updated. Probably, I'm sure they use it as long as they can, but it might be only for five years, maybe not more than 10. And even I'm reading some of the testimony here from the Department of Education, in that some of that in the CTEC program are the purchase of vehicles. Is that for a 20-year bonding period, or they're shorter for equipment and vehicles? Is the bonding for 5 years or 10 years?
We bond as a state at all different maturities. So it could be something that has a year or two time frame. It could be as up to 20 years or longer. We have examples across the system of different components of the capital budget that have different expected lifespans. But a 5 to 10 year is fairly common. We have some things like bridges or school buildings that are quite clearly 20 year or longer. And then we have a good chunk of other capital equipment that's on the shorter side.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Mary Machinsky.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask Jeff, when I tour the manufacturing plants in Wallingford and vicinity, they're always telling me they need more skilled workers that can do advanced manufacturing with the computer assisted manufacturing. And sometimes they hire from out of state in order to get those folks. What can we do in the South Central Connecticut area to increase the number of well-trained workers that these plants would be happy to bring on?
So, Representative, the most important thing is, continuing like you've always done, to support career technical education and support more pathways for kids. We can't, we can't turn out kids fast enough in some areas. We've got, like for EB, welding's another big one along with manufacturing. They've got $80,000 a year jobs waiting for 18-year-old kids. I mean, if they had those for me when I was 17 or 18, I don't think I would have known what to do with $70,000 or $80,000. But we can't turn kids out fast enough to them. It's just a matter of generating more capacity for them to get more kids trained and processed through. And we think that this idea of moving towards a second shift where the LEA high schools can have kids come to us and get trained in manufacturing or mechanical design and in engineering technology, just giving more kids the opportunity to get trained in these ways, in that second type of a shift is we can kind of double our output without having to build any more buildings or buy any more machines. That's probably the best way to get us up and running. And we certainly are servicing the adults at CTEX as well, which is a third way. We've kind of come up with a whole tiered system of how to get more kids trained and more adults trained through our system with what we already have.
Okay, and I did go to one of your night training sessions, and that was pretty neat to see kids coming after school to do this at night. But I still hear the complaints. So other than night courses, would it help if the industries partially paid for the technical equipment that you need for the kids, or do you have the equipment and it's really more of a staffing problem?
There's like a lot of different answers. There's not like a silver bullet. In some places it's hard for us to hire staff because I had a machining teacher hired, almost signed, sealed, and delivered about a year ago. And Sikorsky came in and offered 10% more than I was able to offer salary. And I ended up losing the guy, and this was after searching for 4 months, so it was like we had to start from scratch. So that's one aspect of it. The size of the shop's capacity, we can only, with OSHA, you can only get so many kids, and now more than ever with the COVID stuff, you can only fit so many kids into the shop, at a time. So there's a lot of different answers to that: shop capacity, teacher capacity, number of machines on the floor, which we haven't really bumped into a problem where we don't have enough machines on the floor. We generally have enough machines. It's more about updating the types of machines.
Okay, and is there any possibility the manufacturers themselves could work at the schools for maybe 3 hours a couple times a week, something like that, where you have like a borrowed staff from manufacturing and then they return to their regular jobs?
We've been discussing that, and I've engaged my teachers union leadership if they would be agreeable to something like that. And their response was, just as long as they become members of our union, we don't have a problem. And we were looking at it kind of the way the universities hire adjunct professors. We could maybe hire adjunct teachers that could come in and do some part-time instruction alongside of our full-time teachers. But that type of outside the box thought processes is exactly what we need to do to up our productivity.
Okay, well, that's very interesting, and I'm glad you're looking into that. And keep me informed, because I want, I'd like to go on a plant tour where they don't say, well, I wish we had more well-trained workers. I'd like to go where they don't say that. It would be nice to hear that they're happy with the incoming workers.
Sure. And Madam Chair, if you allow me 2 seconds to go back to Representative Meskers, he had asked what input does industry have in the list, the bond list of equipment. It's 100%, sir. We have what's called CTAC committees, where at every school, our teachers are required twice a year to meet with the business and industry folks in their region, and they generate the equipment list directly from them. They tell them, this is the curriculum we need you to be teaching so that the kids are on the cutting edge of what we're doing in business and industry. And this is the equipment we need them to be trained on. So this list was generated almost 100% with the input from the people in business and industry and all the trades, not just manufacturing, but in carpentry and HVAC and so forth. They tell us what they want us to be teaching the kids, and they do drive our curriculum and our equipment.
All right, thank you. We're running a little bit over. I want to thank you and your team, Commissioner, and everybody on here for coming forth and presenting the information and responding to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Representative Meskers, is your hand up again? Or is it up from before or new?
It's related to the response and from Jeff, and I'd ask in the future presentations, I want to hear whether some of the bonding that we do and whether we're looking at the schools. If the population isn't growing and we have this space, I want to see what we do with some of our schools that we bonded and funded from the state level, whether we need to create centers of excellence for you to be able to distribute that educational program throughout the region. So we create some hubs within some of the schools that we have, if that's possible. So I'll be following up on that, assuming I get reelected in the next biennium.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Next is Connecticut Innovations. And I'm going to ask people, because we're limited to a half an hour, to please, let's try to focus on not program questions, but on questions related to the bonding. And then if we have enough time, we can do those questions at the end that have to do with programs, please. Thank you. Now, who's speaking on behalf of Connecticut Innovations?
That would be me, Madam Chair. This is Matthew McCooey, and I'm with Connecticut Innovations. Can you hear me? Okay.
Hi, and how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. All right. Would you like to begin?
Sure. Yes. So first of all, thank you, members of the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, for joining or allowing us to join you. It's an honor to appear before you again. I just wish we could all be here together in person. With me today on the call, I have the other senior members of Lauren Carmody, who is the head of marketing, Baisden, who runs our human resources, David Werzer, who is our chief investment officer, and Phil Sayuda, who runs finance and operations. And we're all delighted to be here with you. For those of you who don't know Connecticut Innovations and who we are, what we do, I'll just give a brief overview, and happy to jump into any questions that the committee may have. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
That's fine. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So first of all, let me just say that one of the members of the committee asked me about 4 or 5 months ago to put together a draft of 5 or 10 things that I think Connecticut could do to become a technology hub. And when people talk about technology hubs, they're thinking about New York, San Francisco, Boston, Massachusetts, Tel Aviv, Israel. It's places that are really excellent at attracting and retaining talent, attracting great companies. All the companies come in behind them. You get the innovation and you get the skyrocketing GDP growth that's associated with all the high tech. And I just want to say that we did put together a list. Most of them we're actually moving forward on already. because that exercise was really useful. So that's sort of a shout out to the committee members and how you can catalyze change inside of organizations without asking us. We're not asking you for any money to fund any of that. It was just more that thought exercise was super useful. And part of one of the outcomes of that exercise was looking at actually how Connecticut is doing as a technology hub today. And if you look at the corridor from Stamford up to the northern coast and inland to Hartford, we have as many $500 million, $1 billion unicorns as just about any place else in the country or world, as a state, as a region. And it's something we can really be proud of. People don't really know about it because the companies that we tend to support and do really well here are companies that are like Alexion and Arvinas and Biohaven and Semaphore. They're not companies that are household names, but these are companies that are, hundreds of jobs in the state today that are generating, billions of dollars of shareholder value and are changing outcomes for patients and for health systems around the world, as well as in IT. And so it's something that I think people should be proud of, and it's something that we're trying to do more to talk about inside the community. Connecticut Innovations, we're the state's venture capital arm. So we invest in around 75 companies per year, which means it's a small startup out of UConn or Yale, or it's coming out of somebody's garage in Bridgeport or Hartford or Stamford, and we're giving support. We're lending capital or investing capital, and we're wrapping around services to help those companies succeed. To date, we have around 215 companies that are in our portfolio, close to 2,500 jobs, direct jobs in our portfolio companies, and we expect that by 2025, in the next 5 years, that we'll have over 3,000 jobs. We also attract capital, so we have invested in as a venture firm have attracted $3 billion worth of outside venture capital. So those are dollars that are coming into Connecticut, are being invested in the state, driving our innovation, hiring great talent and attracting great talent, and really giving the larger companies a reason to stay as well. They're looking for a more creative, innovative workforce around them, not just inside their own companies, but places where they can pull from. One of the programs that we manage is the Connecticut Biosciences Innovation Fund. We are investing actively out of that. That's in your docket as or bulletin as one of the programs that you support. We are pulling down roughly $20 million a year. We're meant to be pulling down around 25, but we're pretty cautious in terms of how we're investing those dollars, and we're trying to stretch them out. And let me just make sure everybody understands that when we work with one of our company founders, we're investing $1 million and it's a pay it forward model. So we're asking the entrepreneur that he or she, in 5-10 years, they take our $1 million and they turn it into 10 so that we can invest in 10 more companies down the road. And we've had this evergreen cycle that is actually putting Connecticut Innovations on a path to sustainability. So at some point in the next 5 to 10 years, it's quite likely that CI could and would survive and could continue to invest at the pace we're on today. But the overall mission that we're on is to create the next Sikorsky, the next Pfizer, Travelers here in Connecticut, and drive the positive societal benefits, the economic benefits for all the citizens of Connecticut. So I'm going to stop there, Madam Chair, and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you. I think you touched on something there when you said create the next Pfizer. What do you see coming down the road for us in the way of innovation that you would be supporting? Is there anything in the pipeline that you're looking at?
Yeah, so we have a number of companies that are, they have between 20 and 350, 400 employees today, which, in 10 years, any one of those could become something like Pfizer, which I think has around 4,000 jobs still in the state today. And they're working on life-changing pharmaceutical products, health technology products, medical devices. There's a large number of companies today that are reaping billions of dollars from the venture capital and the private and public markets in order to drive their innovation forward. So, I hope it doesn't sound like pie in the sky. We are between New York and Boston. We get great people. Yale brings in around $1 billion a year in federal funding for their research activities. And so it's entirely, I think it's realistic that we're going to have another, Alexion's a $30 billion company today. They just got acquired. I think we'll have more of those, Madam Chair, more companies to brag about.
And so I heard you say you take 10 and turn it into 20 million. Is that the reinvestment after you would given them, or are these loans that we're giving to innovative businesses? Are they loans or are they grants?
So we don't do grants.
They're grants?
Yeah. So yeah, we do not do grants. We're not a grant making organization. Everything all the money we put to work is either we're purchasing equity in the business or we're setting up an exchange for a loan. But in every case, we expect to get the money returned back to CI for reinvestment going forward.
So that's your return on investment that you're speaking of.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, one company, Arvinas in New Haven, we invested around $3 million, and depending upon the stock market, because this company is still public, our shares are worth somewhere between $20 and $30 million. And so that's an actual example of a company that has generated the kind of returns that allows us to put money into the next generation of entrepreneurs and founders.
Thank you. That's very interesting. My co-chair, Representative Dorinda Bora, has a question.
Thank you, Senator. Just hold on one second. So am I reading it correctly that there's 11 million in unallocated funds?
There are dollars that we have not called down yet for the Biosciences Fund.
For the Bioscience Fund. And
yeah, it was a $204 million allocation at the start.
Is that because of COVID? Is that because you haven't identified where to allocate it, or is it because it wasn't allocated in the bonding commission meeting?
No, the funding drops down very easily. Thank you for asking, Representative. It's just a question of pacing. We don't want to put too many dollars out too fast, and so we're on this very steady pace of investing around $20 million a year out of the biosciences. We could invest 25, but we feel like the number of opportunities we have is well matched to that dollar amount. So give or take, it's anywhere between 18 and 25 per year, but the $1 million number is a good one for us.
Okay, great. And how do you connect? How do people know about you?
Yeah, so we've got a 15,000 person email list. We're doing weekly emails to the people on the list. They're LinkedIn and Instagram and a variety of other social media campaigns that we run. But largely, like if you're an entrepreneur in the state and you Google Connecticut and venture capital, which is what somebody would do if they're looking for money in the state, we pop right up. If anybody talks to two people in the state, and they say, who do I go to for capital? One of those two people will know Connecticut Innovations if they're talking to anybody who's in the ecosystem. Because we've been around for 30 plus years, we're a very, very well-known entity. And we've got a pretty good, sized team that works very hard to make sure that we're out there in the community talking to people.
Great, thanks. And then under Connecticut Next, so it said there's no more funding to be authorized or allocated after fiscal year 21. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to pass that. Now that we're moving on to CT Next, I'm going to pass it over to Gwendolyn Thames,
okay,
who is the executive director for CT Next.
Okay.
Hi, Representative Bahra and members of the committee. I was going to do a short presentation, but we can just jump right into it to your question. And Phil Sayuda is on as well, who's our organization's chief operating officer. So a part of our initial capitalization from 2016, specifically for the Innovation Places program, we are projecting that funding to come to an end in the midpoint of the next biennium, so at the end of fiscal year 2022. So to the extent that there are opportunities, given the federal dollars that are coming down the pipeline, and as we look at the bonding capacity, for new ideas to continue to build on momentum. We are actively engaging in conversations, particularly with the co-chair of the Finance Committee, on, again, extending that program for the next year through the last year of the biennium, but also potentially expanding it to other communities. So that particular program is kind of what we're looking for potential new funding, if you will. And that's about $7.5 million for that second year of the biennium. So there's not an immediate need. It's really kind of looking at the second year. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it helps. I got to digest it all, but it's very helpful. What is the line MAA higher education, that funding request or allocation? What is the purpose of that?
Yep. So this again was part of CT Next's original authorization from 2016, and that allocated $10 million over a 5-year period. So tranched out with $2 million a year to really look at us investing in innovation capacity within our higher education institutions. So when you think about what makes robust entrepreneurial ecosystems, similar to what Matt mentioned as far as Yale's capacity, as far as their $1 billion in research, UConn, how can we look at those institutions as economic anchors, right? And that can drive the next generation of entrepreneurship. And so that program was specifically for grants and aids to our higher education institutions, which we have funded over 22. I want to believe we can get you the exact stats on that. But those are programs as far as, proof of concept grants for PIs, whether you have PhDs or principal investigators at the universities who are developing a technology. We've supported those, grant dollars to advance their technologies, as well as fellowship opportunities for students and exposing them to companies that they may not otherwise look at. They're thinking about the UTCs of the world, but are not necessarily thinking about the opportunities with our more smaller innovative companies, if you will. So it runs the gamut. Happy to provide you detailed information about that.
That's great, thanks. It would be great, obviously not in these meetings, but to hear from some success stories in the future. If there's some way we could have, I don't know if it's a committee meeting or, it would just be great to hear how these programs work and, real life case come before us in some format. I don't know what format.
Absolutely. We are always happy to tout the flag because this is work that we, truly believe in. We know that all net new job creation comes from new business formation. And so to the extent that we can invest very early on, we want to do that. And CI and CT Next as partners, we are, the only state institutions that are exclusively focused on new business formation and growing innovative companies in our state. So to that extent, I knew we had a short period of time. So if we wanted just to kind of give some context, we did present a deck that kind of gave an overview of where we've been. And we've been here because of the legislator champion CT Next's Public Act 16-3 in advancing our ability to do the work that we've been doing over the last few years.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thanks for all the work that all of you do in this area. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Representative Piscopo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. My question goes to the question of you being self-sustained. You mentioned maybe 5-10 years down the road. I think that's always been this subcommittee would applaud that. If we didn't have to outlay taxpayer dollars to kind of help you along. So to that end, and I see that should always be your goal, self-sustaining, and I think it always has been. And this isn't a criticism. I think the legislature sometimes steps in and mandates that you authorize a certain amount of investment in a certain area. So that may throw you off with your goals towards self-sustainability. That's a very general question, but is there any truth to that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Representative. And I should say, we are self-sustaining today. So the taxpayers don't pay a nickel towards any of our overhead. That's an important point. So all of our operating expenses to run the organization, all of that is more than covered by the returns from our investments. So needless to say, if we wanted if the legislature and the executive branch decided that they didn't want CI to keep investing at the pace that we're on today, and they didn't want to invest in startups in the state, we'd be good. We can keep going for a long time, and we would just be, instead of becoming a tech hub in 25 or 30, we would sort of stay with where we are now. And so it is driven by the ambitions, I think, of the state in terms of, how important is it to attract and retain innovation and talent and companies here. It's a competitive world out there. And I think the legislature and executive branch wisely, especially with the Sciences Fund, they made a commitment to invest aggressively in biosciences in Connecticut. And Stanford alone, we had 5 companies that are billion-dollar unicorns in just Stanford. And New Haven to Groton, you have a large number of billion-dollar companies. That doesn't happen unless the state is aggressively investing. And by the way, unless the federal government is, right? So Yale doesn't get $1 billion a year unless the federal government is investing those dollars into those researchers, right? So this is a very much a federal government, state government, private sector driven effort. But I do want to allay your concerns and make sure I hit your point. We're self-sustaining today. And the additional dollars that we're putting to work, many of those come from our returns. And then the dollars over and above that are coming because you all, I think in your wisdom, decided that you want us to go big. I think it was the right call.
Thank you for that answer. It was very important for me to hear. It's important for this committee to hear that answer. I appreciate it. I perceive Connecticut as being very ripe with a whole industry of angel investors, venture capitalists in the private sector, so to speak. At what point do you interact with them? Do you aid them in what they're doing, or maybe you're not getting in their way of an investment, because you're backed by the state of Connecticut?
Yeah, actually, that's a great point. It's a really important point, actually. You don't want the public sector interfering with the private sector mechanisms. And I can assure you that does not happen. So there's what they call the valley of death, or the crossing the chasm. Our sweet spot is that really early stage proof of concept, Series A, call it what you want. It's those very, very high risk dollars that the VCs very often don't want to put in. And the angels really want CI there at the table with them to bolster their dollars and to support their efforts. And the VCs do too. So in fact, one of the areas that we identified over the last few years is that Connecticut, you're right, used to have a pretty robust venture capital set of venture capital firms. There are so few here today. And so one of the things we've been doing is that we've actually been investing alongside of other VCs, not just on a deal by deal basis, but we're actually trying to attract venture firms to come back to sort of restock the pond for Connecticut, because we were down to 2 or 3 venture firms that were fully headquartered here in Connecticut. So we're starting to bring that system back. And part of that is our successes, right? So people hear about all these billion-dollar companies, turning $10 million into $1 billion. That attracts more and more dollars. And so I think that again, rest assured that not interfering, we are very much a lubricant for the angel investors and for the VCs to come into this market and find great deals. The pond is well stocked with companies, and then we're also now trying to get more VCs and angels into the market. And in fact, that's been a big push not just on the VC side, but also on the angel side. We work very hard to, we have events and we promote our companies directly to the angel community here in Connecticut.
Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Martin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know who can answer this, if it's Matt or Glenn, but how much have we, the state, how much money have we put into this since inception? You guys started back in 2015, 2016? So how much have we know, is it 10 million, 20 million a year, but total to date, how much?
Yeah, so Senator Martin, let me just kind of do a clarifying moment, because Matt and I were kind of going to tag team and do a presentation, but we jumped right into it, and that's okay. So I just want to back up a minute, because there is a distinction between CI and CT Next. So as Matt kind of went over, Connecticut Innovations is the public venture arm of the state, and they act like a traditional VC with a double bottom line. Obviously, they want to get return on their investment and create that evergreen fund, but they also want to grow the advanced technology industry and economy in our state. And so then you have CT Next that came along in 2016, and we were created as a quasi-public, wholly owned subsidiary of Connecticut Innovations via Act Public 16-3 that I mentioned earlier that the legislature championed. And that was really looking at the ecosystem more holistically. So the investment capital that Matt and his team run, that's one component. But when you think about the culture, the anchor institutions, our university systems, our business supports, all those things that go into what creates a robust entrepreneur ecosystem, that is what CT Next focuses on. And we do that in two distinct ways. We provide direct grants to entrepreneurs. So, you know, mini grants, $10,000 here to prove out a concept or a project, and tech talent development or what have you. And then simultaneously, we are building that community infrastructure. So when you think about accelerators or incubators, dynamic kind of co-working spaces that bring entrepreneurs together to do that knowledge sharing that then results in new companies and new innovation, that's the investments that we're making. And we've been doing that across the state. Our flagship program is the Innovation Places program, but we're also doing that via higher ed investments and also in some of our other cities like Bridgeport, Middletown, Maryland, Meriden, or what have you. So again, just holistically, that's just the distinction between CI and CT Next, but we're tied at the hip and we're sister agencies, so we're working in tandem. But I wanted to kind of make that distinction. So to your point about CT Next and your question around what was our initial kind of bond authorization from 2016, that was approximately 67 or 62.5. Phil Sayuta, who's on, is our chief financial officer. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was our initial capitalization for the 5-year period from 2016 through the 5-year period, if you will. Phil, do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, you're correct. Hi, good afternoon, Bonding Subcommittee. Thanks for having me. This is Phil Sayuta. I'm the CFO of Connecticut Next and Chief Operating Officer of Connecticut Innovations. Yes, the initial authorization was $67.5 million back in 2016. So Glenn was correct. And we have about all through, we have about 12 more million that we're going to use during this upcoming year. And then as Glenn spoke to earlier, there may be a bond request out there for the second half of the biennium to continue with the same programs in the amount of around $7.5 million.
Okay, so does that go through CI, or does that go specifically to, is that a request from CI, or is that a request from CT Next?
The original question, so the bonding brought out was split out between Manufacturers Assistance Act at DECD. So half of the request goes DECD, and then half of it goes through Connecticut Innovations.
Okay.
And the bonding chart you have in front of you kind of distinguished between the CI ask and the MAA.
So Glenn, you mentioned that CT Next are grants. Are those loans as well?
So we are a purely granting organization. We used to do some loan royalty payments, but we've pretty much moved away from that. So we are solely doing grants.
Okay, so the big question here. So we've provided 67.5 roughly. And, you know, I've heard the discussion about Evergreen, and I'm looking at, okay, we've got equity positions on some, you know, I guess businesses. We have loans with some others. So what is the net value of our investment that we've made for 67.5? I realize you haven't invested 12 million of it, but what's the current value of that investment to date? And I see the information about the jobs and the economic activity that it has spurred, but if we're taking equity positions in some of these ventures, there must be a value, and that's what I'm looking for.
And do you want me to start and then I'll pass it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So fair question, Senator. So Connecticut Innovations, because we're the group that takes the equity positions and we're the ones who do the loans. So the value of our loan and equity portfolio today is around $200 million. I expect that'll be up around close to 300 in 5 years or so. But that's because we're directly investing. We buy shares, we take out loans. Glenn's group is the grant making body, so they wouldn't have assets under management. You know, if you're doing a grant, you don't get any. It's an investment into the ecosystem, right? But it doesn't, like, you're not accruing any assets under management like that. So I think it's a little confusing because we're doing CT Next and CI at the same time.
No,
but
no, not at all. It's not confusing.
Okay.
I'm just glad that you're
Okay.
clarifying it for everybody here. I think that's important for us to realize, you know, there's an arm that is doing the actual investing, and you guys are getting a rate of return on that investment. But whereas Glenn and her arm are, hey, we're building something different here. It's a little bit more to it than strictly.
Yeah, and what they're building is they're making it so that the state is a place where when we get these companies and the entrepreneurs to come to Connecticut, we want to arrive here, and it's a place that they want to stay and they want to grow their businesses and raise their families, and on the entrepreneurial side. And so the two very much, like she said, go hand in hand.
So just so that we can have a little bit more information, Glenn, how much money a year do you use out of the bonding money that we allocate to you? How much do you sort of invest in your infrastructure versus what Matt is doing?
Yeah, so from about 2017, I think we've been averaging, you know, between 10 and 12 million a year, depending. You know, obviously last year was a little bit of a dip because of the pandemic, but I think, again, when you smooth it out, we're at that 10 to 12 million dollar range for all of our programs, if you will. And Phil can chime in and can correct me if I'm wrong here too.
That's correct. That's correct, Glenn.
So when you say all your programs, all your grant programs, or is
all
that
of CT Next geared programs? Yes.
Okay, and Matt, how much do you use on an annual basis?
So we invest. It varies, but 35 and 40 million a year.
Is that
into nothing? Yeah, we have totally separate books, actually. So Glenn runs our books and we run our books. So we're investing 35 to 40 million dollars in around 75 to 80 companies a year. We're actually investing in more than one company a week.
So I guess what I'm looking for, if the ask is for 25 million, how much of this is going to be Glenn's and how much of this is going to be Matt's?
Matt, it's all the CBIF money, the 25 million.
Yeah, the 25 million is the biosciences that's been allocated and authorized.
Okay.
And those dollars are totally separate and apart from the CT Next budget. So there's the biosciences fund is a $200 million fund, and we can draw down $25 million per year through 2024.
So Matt, let's go back to first 5 years here. So have you been taking, or the funding from the bonding, how much of that have you been using to create your?
So we've used,
Go ahead.
yeah, so we used about 111 out of the $204 million have been invested to
Okay,
date.
so it's almost
And it-
split in half. It's almost 50-50 then.
We're about halfway. And it was started in, I think it was set up in 2012. 2012. And it was meant to be 10 years, but we're going to stretch it out to be closer to 15, Senator.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for clarifying some of this information.
Yeah.
It's appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam
Thanks
Chair.
for questions.
Thank you.
I kind of feel we put the cart in front of the horse. I think we should have had you come in and give us an overview of how you work together and who you are, and then had you come back and ask questions later. A lot of this is very interesting, but very new, and didn't realize it was two separate. I was thinking it was one, so thank you. Representative Meskers.
So I'll go back on the funding question. So about $67 million is what I heard from 2012 or 11 or something like that. So it was evenly split between, so I'm trying to get what the seed capital is for the innovation, because you're telling me the book's worth about 200, 220 or something?
The book for, so again, the CTNX, put CTNX aside, right? So the CI portion, our book is 215 today to 300 and by 2025, as long as the markets hold.
Okay. And when do you think?
Sorry, please.
So what do you think the seed capital on that was?
So we've invested on the biosciences side of the biosciences commitment. We've invested 111. Of that, worth noting, 1/3. So the biosciences fund was set up to be university medical establishments as well. So there's 1/3 of that went directly into universities. So it was meant to be royalties, but you can sort of write off that 1/3 representative because it weren't into companies. It was like a Yale project or a UConn project. I think if you think about it, like $65 million has gone into companies.
That's worth
that's a good way of thinking about it.
So I did think about 65 going in being worth about 200.
Well, the portfolio today is worth over 200, but that's also that's our total portfolio. Because we manage technology companies, life sciences companies. We've been doing this for a long time. So some of those investments predate the biosciences fund as well. CI has been around for 30 years. We started in 1989.
Okay. And when do you think you get to be? This is the dangerous question. When do you think you get to be self-funded?
So, like I said, we could be self-funded today if the legislature
liquidating early on assets, basically.
Well, it would mean we weren't doing follow-on investing. We weren't investing in new companies.
Okay. And what kind of hit ratio do you think you have in terms of success?
So, yeah, similar to other venture funds. We're probably a 2 in 10.
Okay.
2 out of 10 companies succeed, and we generate. In my view, if our return is 1, so if we invest $1 and we can put that money forward, that's a win because of all the jobs and the payroll taxes and 3,000 jobs in Connecticut. That's a lot. These are good, high-paying jobs.
Well, you don't have to sell me on the business. I'm trying to understand what the opportunity space is, given our underfunded pension system and our rainy day fund, and not to take a lot of risk, but to figure out if you're benchmarking the right way, is there a way to help to the benefit of the state's balance sheet? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's funny you ask that. So the way I think about that, and it's not fair, but one of the ways I think about that is because we have the state we pay. So to hire an employee in Connecticut, your overhead is 80%. So if I were to hire somebody in the private sector, as you know, I'm paying 25, 30%. That delta is going into the pension. And so we put about $4 million back into covering overhead. So that goes back to the LP through payroll, actually. But look, all the payroll taxes that we generate, that's going to help pay down the general budget and towards pension obligations. Like I think as a business person and an investor, which I know you are, we've actually met, Representative.
Right.
Yeah, this is a very solid use of bond dollars where, the state puts in one and it gets back 1.1 or 1.2. So we're exceeding the total.
Understood. In terms of the economic activity in the short term, I'm thinking the upside and whether or not we need to figure out how to capture some of that for the underfunded pension fund. I was wondering, whether the treasurer's office, it's another conversation. I won't go on for any longer here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, it's small beer towards the pension obligation. It wouldn't go very far.
Understood. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, we're running over. Are there, Representative Wood?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, not Commissioner, but thank you. Matt, you said something a minute ago. You're 2 for 10 on investment, on returning on investment, yet you're 1 for 1 on returning on income, or something along those lines. Could you say that again and what exactly? I mean, there seems to be a disconnect between what you said.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So there's venture math, which is different. Venture capital math is a little different. So if you go back to the example I gave of Arvinas, where we put in $3 million, and today those shares are now worth $25 million. So if your one investment works or your 2 investments work and you're getting back 5-10 times your capital, that makes up for all the companies that did not succeed. So that's very venture capital industry. 2 and 10 is pretty common.
Perfect. Thank you. That helps a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just wish I'd invested in Bitcoin 5 years ago. It would have been the best thing I could have done, like Elon Musk.
I was thinking the same thing. Well,
and I do, yeah. Don't we all? Hindsight. I definitely support what you do, and having been on finance now, this is my 4th term. It's really exciting to see the projects you're involved in and how you're helping lift the state up and spread the good word. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you,
Madam
Representative.
Chair.
Yeah, we love it. Thank you.
Yeah, clearly.
Thank you all, because this was really quite educational and interesting. So I want to really thank you. There's a lot of new people on here. Some people have been on here before, but I think our time was well spent with all of you all. So thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Dave Stuber, who's now sitting on the other side, who would normally be here with us. So he took some good talent away from us. And
yes. We're happy to have him. I apologize, I didn't get to introduce the whole team, but David Stuber has now been on for a little over a year as lead on our Innovation Places program, but also our policy lead as well, which many of you know, and he was a part of that team that ushered in the public Act 16-3. So again, we're happy to have him. Sorry to pull him away, but he's gonna still benefit us as a state. And we also have Jessica Dodge, who's our Director of Operations. Phil, I introduced earlier, and then we have Tom Bradley, who's our Director of Marketing and Communications. And Matt McCooey is our Board Chairman as well. So there's a direct tie between CI and CTNEX.
Well, thank you all. Dave, I was looking for you. There's someone who's really missing you even more than I am.
Absolutely.
Who's not going to let you
It's a pleasure
forget
to testify in front of this committee after having sat in so many committee hearings over the years.
Thank you. Well, we're glad you're still with us in some form, even if you're not with finance, but thank you. And thank you all for everything that you gave today. We may be asking you to come back again and just give us a larger overall view of how this works. This is very interesting, very interesting. We always talk about how the money's going. We never talk about the great investments we've made and how that money is flowing in and coming in and also drawing new talent and stuff. So thank you all. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care now.
So our last person is the Department of Labor. We're running about 17 minutes over. I may have to ask Representative Bohr to take over for me because I do have a 4:30 caucus, right?
Sure. No problem.
Thank you. So I see Deputy Commissioner Dante.
Marilyn.
Former senator who left me. Do you have anybody else with you?
Commissioner Westby.
Yeah.
And right
Hi,
there.
Commissioner.
Hi there. You see me?
I see you now.
Okay.
All right. Would you like
We
to
also-
begin?
Madam Chair, we also have with us Mark Pozzella, who's the director of the WEO Administration Unit. And we have Brian Richards, who's with Business Management, the Fiscal Office. And I believe we have also Marissa Morello.
Thank you. Who'll be leading today?
I can start off. Good afternoon, Representative Borer, Senator Moore, Senator Martin, Representative Piscopo. My name is Kurt Westby. I'm the Commissioner of Labor, and you've met all the others. We do not have a prepared statement because we don't have a specific agenda item for you other than the two items that I understand are still on the books, which are the Workforce Training Authority and Step Up Armed Forces. First, the Workforce Training Authority that was never funded in the first place and was created in the prior administration, and the Step Up Armed Forces, which was initiated, I believe, in 2012, went for about 4 years and then was no longer from roughly 2016 to now. So I understand there's $3 million of unallocated funds in that line item, but it hasn't been accessed for some 5 years. So that's it in a very rough nutshell. So we're open to any questions that you may have, obviously.
Do we have some questions?
Wait, Representative Farrar.
Representative Farrar.
Thanks, Chairwoman. Nice to see everyone. And thanks for accommodating us jumping in and out of this and other meetings today. Appreciate it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can now. It blanked out.
Okay, super. Just a couple questions. I know you referenced the Workforce Training Authority of the previous administration. So are there current operational funds associated with that right now?
No, there are not. In fact, the board that would have overseen that back when the legislation passed was never even created. So there are zero funds to that.
Okay. And then we certainly are hearing about it a lot. And I know it was just in Senate Bill 881 that we voted out of the Higher Ed and Employment Advancement Committee is reference to the Career Connect initiative. Can you kind of share a little bit more detail of DOL's involvement in that, since that request from the governor will have a bonding request?
Dante, do you want to take that one?
Only to say that I'm sorry, but that is not within our agency. That would be within DECD.
And so can you share what DOL's role will be in the Career Connect account?
You know, I really don't think that we can right now because that legislation is new and it's within the, it's within session. I don't know what that will end up looking like, but it is our agency does not have a large role in what's currently being proposed. I know you just had DECD with you. I don't know if there was other statements made, but that is really not it's not something that we would have a significant role with as it stands currently.
Okay, I certainly can follow with more detail. The way that it's been proposed, I believe, is that the Office of Workforce Strategy would be managing those funds. But with the Office of Workforce Strategy, the point of that office is to coordinate with relevant workforce offices, across the government that we have here in the state of Connecticut. So I certainly can follow up because, as you said, Deputy Commissioner, it is evolving. But I just wanted to note that obviously the funds there have true impact on our workforce development. So would want to make sure that the DOL is involved with the Office of Workforce Strategy in the implementation of those funds.
Well, clearly the DOL, I presume, would be very involved, as are other agencies that have very active and robust workforce development, workforce training programs. And, you know, the OWS is envisioned to be working with all those agencies and is engaged with all those agencies to do exactly that. So the presumption clearly is that there would be a substantial amount of coordination.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And then just one final question, because I know it's on my mind and so many others, not just this year with COVID, but as we move forward to support your agency, can you give an update on where you are at currently and what you're thinking even in the next year or two in regards to IT infrastructure and upgrades?
Well, we have been very involved with upgrading in a wholesale way our entire system. We call it modernization. That was to have culminated in May of this year. We were waylaid by the pandemic, frankly. We were put off 13 months. So our new goal is June of 2022. We have a lot of resources devoted toward modernization. We feel that we must reach modernization by 2022. We've done a lot of the work towards that end. We've been actively working on it since 2016, except for basically a hiatus when the pandemic occurred. We're back pushing it very strongly. We feel that we have to, because we have a very old system that we've been maintaining. We've been improving, and we've been adding program after program after program, for which this antiquated system, quite frankly, it's really not designed for it. It's a 1970s era COBOL system, but we're very proud of the fact that we've delivered every system but one so far, and that last one, that last IU program is going to be rolled out very soon, the MEUC program. So on the one hand, we're very proud of what we've done, but this is not a long-range sustaining methodology. So we expect to be where we need to be with a new cloud-based system in June of next year.
We do have information that we provided. I'm sorry, Representative Farrar. We have information that we provided to the Appropriations Committee that itemizes all of the technology advances and things that we've been working on. Happy to get that to this committee if you would like.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, because I think, as you noted, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, we certainly might have overlapping questions in this regard to make sure that you have really the support, not just to fulfill your daily functions, but certainly to support the needs of all of our residents. So thanks for offering that detail, and that'd be wonderfully helpful, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Representative Terry Wood, and I'm going to turn over the chairmanship to Representative Farrar. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And great to see you, Deputy Commissioner. Miss you too. It's fun, old home week in a sense.
I know, it's wonderful. You look, by the way, your hair looks great.
Thank you. So my question aligns around the infrastructure, because we did hear on Finance Committee public hearing last week, it wasn't going to be built out until another couple of years. We didn't hear 2022, and we did make a request through our clerk to have you all come and talk about it, because there was a great deal of concern of the extremely delayed payments for people under the DOL regs this past, during the pandemic. It was frustrating. I mean, I know it was frustrating for you all too. So, but it was frustrating for constituents. And I think for many of us on the legislative side, it's what we spent a great deal of time doing. So I just wonder why did it did it go so long without being addressed? And why does it take so long to fix it? Because I think of something like American Express, I bet they would have that thing up and running in 6 weeks. I could be mistaken, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this, on why it does take so long.
To modernize is your
Right.
question?
Yes.
Well,
And why
would,
did it go so long without being addressed?
well, you mean for the last 40 years?
Yeah.
Well, I can't answer that. I came in, February of 2016, but there had been several attempts to modernize, and one very big attempt to modernize 20 years ago, and that just simply failed. I don't really have the answers to that, but that, there was a lot of money invested into that back then. And so some of the old timers maybe on this committee might remember. I just don't know. Modernization programs in UI, unfortunately, take a substantial amount of time. These are extremely complicated systems. Our system is a conglomeration of 5 different systems that have been put together, amalgamated, over the years. There's no way you could modernize a system like ours throughout in 6 weeks with any vendor. I can guarantee you that. I think I push on a weekly basis our vendor and USDOL and our partners. We're by the way, we're using a system that was funded by USDOL in Mississippi and then adopted up in Maine, and now we're the 3rd state to utilize it. So we're, in that sense, we're saving a lot of money, and it's a proven system. These guys are working as fast as they can, and TCS is a very qualified vendor. Is it frustrating that it didn't happen, that we didn't meet our deadline, and that we couldn't have realized our modernization goals before the pandemic hit? Of
Right.
course.
Understood.
Of course. But we were going full speed,
Right.
up until the pandemic occurred, and it was just a tsunami that hit us. We even without the tsunami, we knew we were on borrowed time, and we're going as fast as we could. And it's just unfortunate, the timing of the thing, frankly. Very
So thank you. So how is it different? Why is it more complicated than the private sector? Something like American Express. And if this is something that we should be pushing off for your presentation to the Finance Committee, as requested by the committee last week, I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, I'm not an IT expert. We have plenty of them. These are 2 very different animals. Maybe we could bring in USDOL. I mean, they haven't, quite frankly, solved the modernization problem very well either. We work closely with them. We think we have the best product in the country, and we're looking at only a year now, and that's considered objectively by our peers to be very good, believe it or not. And again, I'll just say that these are very different animals that are far more complicated than just debits and checks and all that stuff. But if you want a more detailed IT analysis to that question, we could certainly bring in some people to answer it.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was the focus of the committee's concern last week. Yeah. So I would, look forward to that. Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Representative Meskers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kurt, first, Deputy Commissioner Kurt Westby, I want to thank you for your efforts this year. I think we all failed to recognize, or not failed to recognize, I think I want to call it out for you faced a heroic crisis, epic proportions, and your execution was stunning. The crisis of for income and unemployment and that our residents were facing was dramatic. So, and knowing what kind of system you were dealing with, I have nothing but salute you for all the effort. And now I come from a completely different side, and I wanted to ask you about this. I've had a couple of conversations with small businesses, And I have a tremendous concern, given pandemic unemployment and state benefits, that as we begin to open the economy, I think the demand pull for, and it may be just a short seasonal flurry, but I think the amount of employment demand from every seasonal operator of a amusement park, golf course, restaurant, beach club, et cetera, is going to be tremendous. And I'm not sure how we exercise our due diligence and judicious use, given the numbers involved, in terms of who actually is unemployed and who chooses not to work. And I don't know how you thread that needle. And I'm so glad to be able to ask the question and not to have to answer the question, to be honest.
Well, if you're referring to adjudications and that sort of thing in terms of differences of opinion between an employer and employee as to whether they're not available and able to work, referring to that, I mean, unfortunately or fortunately, that is a very rigorous process that begins with the adjudications section. And right now there are 10,000 people or employers waiting for their hearing. Then that could go to an appeals decision.
No, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm thinking more the people who are out adjudicated and it's 6 months out. And now all of a sudden everything is open. And, I'm hearing basically anecdotally that people are already having trouble finding employees willing to work.
Oh, finding employees willing to work.
Yeah, at this point. So your adjudication, what happens with people who are on the rolls now and there is ample work? Like,
if someone is on, if someone is on the rolls and there is ample work, and the employer notifies the former employee who was working, then that employee has an obligation to go back to work, unless there's some compelling reason why that would not be the case. That gets to the adjudication. So there is a process, and there is an expectation that anyone who had been laid off by that employer must be recalled by that employer. Now, if we're talking about other people and other people who are looking for work for any given employer, that's just a simple question of the labor market and the utilization of our American job centers to find those employers, and utilizing our career centers and our partners, in the workforce development arena. Does that help get to your question?
I guess we're all probably going to see this squeeze, I think, in the next month, when a lot of seasonal and restaurants all open full throttle. And the question is going to be, are people going to be willing to take the work and the pay versus the unemployment benefits? And are they still certified? I think it's going to be a push-pull.
Well, I think it is going to be a push-pull. Then I'll let Dante jump in. There were more concerns earlier when the FPUC federal additional plus-up benefit was $600. Now it's only $300. It's half of that. So there may be, if you buy into that argument, that it kept people away from returning to work, there is less of an incentive. But I'll remind you that there is an expectation in regards to being able and available to work, regardless of the amount of money that folks are compelled to go back to work with the employer. And there's an adjudication process, if they don't. But I think Dante wanted to add something to that.
Go ahead, Dante.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Representative, I think that one important point to consider is that there is a check and balance in place. And so every single week, someone who's receiving unemployment benefits has to go on the system and certify weekly. It's for us to determine if their benefits will continue. And one of the questions that they're asked is whether or not they have been offered and turned down employment. So now, obviously, people can be less than truthful if they chose to, but there's a lot of penalty to that. So folks are asked to certify. If they select that they have been offered something, even if we need to get to the due process and the appeals, it automatically puts a hold on their claim at that moment in time until we can do a fact finding to understand why they turned down that job. And that's where due process comes into place for both the claimant and the employer. Now, if going forward, they continue to receive unemployment benefits, and the employer alerts us, which they are absolutely, we expect and hope that they will as well. Then there's there's due process on their side, and if the person receiving unemployment has falsified their weekly certification, that's fraudulent. There are penalties for that. So there is a checks and balances in place. And, it was mentioned before by Representative Wood about what happened when in the beginning of the pandemic, we did have a backlog and things were taking longer. We received 1.4 million applications. That's actually 10 years worth of applications in what ended up being 10 months. Earlier last week, we began round 2, where folks can reapply if they need a second benefit year. So we're expecting last week and this week and the next 4, about 150,000 applications will come our way again. But we now have systems in place. We have a contact center that's been stood up. We're helping about 6,600 people per day through that contact center. With person to person, and then another 3,200 per day by chatbot interactive, intelligence. So we do have, it is a different system, a different experience than it was earlier on, and we encourage employers to alert us if they are offering employment and folks are remaining on unemployment, and then we go into the both sides due process.
Okay, my only suggestion is there's so many new people involved in the process that they don't necessarily view it as malicious, and people may be checking the boxes, so you may want to figure out how you flag the issue for the applicant, so he thinks twice before he says he hasn't denied any work. Just, if the unemployment rate is, if demand, you start hearing demand for labor, you don't, it's not that I want you to prosecute people or create liability or fraud. I want people to be gently reminded that, it's a good faith effort on their part, and they need to be conscious that they might be committing, a misdemeanor or whatever. That's my concern.
Right. And
Hey,
the
guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to transition the conversation.
Policy.
We need to stick with bonding,
All right.
and it's an important conversation. And I know you're coming before finance, so it's very important information for us to have, because these are constituents that come to us every day. And we need to understand how prepared we are and what our resources are and what our timeframes are. However, Representative Meskers, did you have any bonding comments or questions?
No, I understand what they're doing. We've spoken at length about the renovation of the system and all, so I'm fully in support.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions from here, just a comment, just to thank the commissioner and deputy commissioner. We, going back to 2008, we hit the height of our unemployment, 119,000 people. And I think pre-COVID, maybe we're doing 90,000 applications, and going from there almost overnight to 1.4 application. Just hats off to you guys and thank you. I think your staff and your department as a whole responded remarkably well, considering the crisis that we had to deal with here. I know you guys didn't hear that enough, or probably hardly at all, that you really did a good job considering the system that you had, and you're transitioning, or because of the emergency, you had to transition to take care of all those applications, and you're still doing it right now. So just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
That's all. All right.
Senator Martin, we really appreciate that. We took it on the chin for a little while, but I can assure you we did everything, and we had everyone working very, very, very hard. And both of your comments are very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Senator. And I don't see any other hands. I just have 2 last comments. Hold on one second. Let me pull up your agency sheet. I just want to confirm 2 things. So the $3 million unallocated for the armed force member subsidy training, did you mention that in your opening? Is that, it's unallocated because?
I mentioned it very briefly. My understanding of that is that it's basically been, it hasn't been utilized since we ran out of the last allocation since about 2016. So there hasn't been a incredibly strong demand for it. We could bring it back if you wanted to bring it back. There's no doubt. There are other programs that serve veterans. It's not as if they don't have workforce development programs, but it's been unfunded for 5 years.
So if it's unfunded, that $3 million that says unallocated, and Eric from OFA, probably this is my, newbie. Is that something that should be canceled, or is this something that we should be using? It's from 2016. Can we still use that funding?
Are you asking me, Representative Orr?
Yes, I was asking you. I was asking OFA too. I was just trying to understand if something's from 2016 and it's unallocated and it looks like it's $3 million still sitting there. Are we able to use it? And if we are, should we?
Well, I'll give you my view on it really quickly. We could use it. I don't think it's absolutely critical that we have it, but I will say that program was created in 2012 for all the vets that were returning from the Middle East. There was a need back then. The need is not as strong now, but one thing you might consider is just keeping it on the books in case we need it, for some similar situation in the future.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
So it says Connecticut subsidized training and employment program provides wage and training subsidies to employers that hire unemployed veterans. I think we have a significant amount of unemployed veterans. And if we have $3 million, do they know about the program? I mean, I'm only going to speak for myself. I mean, if we have $3 million that we could use to help provide subsidies for those who hire veterans, we certainly should.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
We haven't had any actual funds in the agency to distribute, so therefore there's been nothing for us to be marketing or to let folks know about. So the next step would be, if it were voted off from the bond commission. But we've run out of any funding that we had from previous authorizations in about 2016. So we've not advertised anything.
Okay, so all right, so I'm confused. So it says here that it's not canceled. It's $3 million there. So it's authorized but unallocated.
Correct.
Okay, Eric,
shaking. But not appropriated.
Not appropriated. I'm sorry, not appropriated. So it's authorized. It's not appropriated. So what we want to, I mean, it's a good program. I mean, I guess that's something our committee will discuss going forward when we re-meet. Okay. Eric's saying, yes, that's how we do it. All right. So, but it's good to know where the program stands before we as a committee determine what we do with that $3 million.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last question I have, and then I see Representative Wood has her hand up as well. So all of this discussion around the modernization of the system, you don't need any bonding for this. You have the funds, you're ready to go. You don't need any money for the modernization of the labor system?
I believe that there is, I wasn't aware that this was going to be discussed at this meeting. I thought it was only the step up in the WTA, but I think that there will yet in the future be yet another tranche coming up, but not immediately, I believe, the final tranche for the modernization.
There is still money that is currently allocated but not appropriated within a separate account. That wasn't one of the ones that came here today. What we recently did last winter was we were able to utilize some federal funding that was about to expire for some of the efforts that we expected to have to bond. We were able to do that. So right now, at this point in time, we kind of have to see how things go, and going ahead for that the June 2022, where we hope to launch. We may need to come back for additional bonding, so please don't cancel that, because we were able to delay and ask and use up some additional federal funding at the end of the year last year.
Okay, great. So my question, thank you. So my question to Eric is, our IT system bond requests, oh, he must be texting me that okay, so they're in another section. So that's why I keep asking every department about their IT system capital needs, but it's not in the agency request. So thank you all for bearing with me. Representative Wood.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to amend I hope I didn't come across as too harsh on the difficulties and the challenges last spring. I certainly didn't. It was helpful to have an understanding of the system, and it sounds like this old system hampered your speed in delivering product checks to unemployed this fall, this spring. So I just wanted to soften my approach and say, I just needed to understand. It was just frustrating for all of us to try and explain to constituents. We're trying, and I know they're working hard, and I do appreciate your efforts, both you and the Deputy Commissioner and everybody there. It was tough, and sensitivity around that. So thank you.
Madam
Well,
Chair,
thank you. And we, listen, it was just as frustrating for us, and I could see the frustration for all of you. Got constituent after constituent just hammering you and not getting a result as quickly as they want. And it was just a very, very tough situation. And I think we handled it, in retrospect, as good as we possibly could have, but it's never good enough.
Well, it helps to hear your perspective and your side of things. So thank you.
If I might say thank you, and Representative Wood, as you said that, I thought that's one of the reasons I used to love working with her. I appreciate that. I really do. I am more than happy at any point in time to go into detail, the commissioner as well. It sounds like we're going to have an opportunity at a finance committee meeting. There is just so much more that, we would love to talk in detail about what we've had to do to get where we are, what we still have coming, because the American Recovery Plan just passed. We have new development and design in front of us as well for that. And so, really appreciate the interest and look forward to being able to explain more.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Thank you, Representative Wood. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Dante. I just wanted to, for those of you who may have been asking about capital requests as well for IT investment, that's in this centralized in the OPM capital account. So anybody else who's new, who was wondering about that. So Representative Wood, your hand is just up from before, I imagine. I do not see any other questions or comments. So on behalf of the entire committee, I want to thank you for being here. We look forward. We're all on the Finance Committee, so more to come, but we're even this much more knowledgeable by the time we get to the Finance Committee meeting that we'll be able to engage in a very lively discussion. So thank you to the Department of Labor. Thank you to all the committee meeting members.
I do have a question. Do we have another meeting set up?
So Wednesday, we had another series of agency meetings. However, the finance meeting where the bond bill is in the public hearing is Wednesday as well. So we have a feeling that's going to end up overlapping because Tom told us there's a bit of a sign up to speak. So imagine that.
Really? This is 2021.
Yeah. So we've been multitasking while we're on here with Senator Moore. We were going to move it to Friday, but Senator Moore now has Human Services. So I think what we're going to do is take one person from Wednesday and add it on each day. So, So look for an updated schedule as soon as we settle all that out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mushinski?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Wanted to ask the commissioner while he's here, when you said Wednesday is our extra long hearing, I started to freak over that maybe I should ask my question today. Because I just went through a bunch of those 15 and 16-hour hearings. But anyway, Commissioner, I've had a long-standing case that is a constituent who's been trying to get onto the site to verify that she's still unemployed. This is an older worker, and she's still locked out of the site. Does that tend to be a programming problem, or does that tend to be the computer is looking for something that she never handed in, or what's the typical reason for that, a lockout?
It could be a lot of reasons. It could be a mistake she made. It could be a potential fraud issue that was highlighted by one of our automated systems. It could be an overpayment that might have occurred. I mean, there are just a slew of potential reasons as to why. It's very complicated. I think if you can give us email me and I can refer it and have it looked at if you want.
I would appreciate that. It's been dragging on for months and I can't seem to get this woman resolved.
Sometimes these things can get very complicated regarding work that they might have had in other states, regarding an employer that may disagree with something. There's just a whole lot of reasons. So if you want to email me, I can refer it over to an expert to get it looked at, and that's kurt.westby@ct.gov.
Okay, thank you. We will try again. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Mashinsky. Thank you, Commissioner. Sometimes that's as simple as they didn't file on time on a Sunday, right, Dante? And they got locked out. Hailing from the fifth largest amount of unemployment cases in the state, we've spent a lot of time fixing those.
They do have until Friday, but if they pass through Friday, then yes, it gets locked.
Awesome. Okay, everybody.
Madam Chair, may I just confirm, do you want us, it sounds as though you might be considering in the future the remaining step-up allocation. Do you want us to provide you some type of a summary of what's been used, how it's been used? And
that'd be awesome. You mean for the veterans program, the step up?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that would be terrific. You know, how many folks have
we'll get
used
that
it.
over to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, well, we're almost at 5. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Look for our updated schedule and up.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody.
Our pleasure. See you next time.